Is it Climb? Is it Force? Corey Heim!
Side by side, it's going to be Aaron Salamito.
Back here at the new Smyrna Speedway as driver introductions continue on for your field of super late models that are getting set to do battle as part of the 58th annual Florida Governor's Cup here on this half-mile high-banked oval. And we are just getting to the point where these drivers are having to shift their focus from the pomp and circumstance that is the pre-race ceremonies to this race and focus on the task at hand. We went over the fact that it's going to be 200 green flag laps that are going to be contested, but Pike, with these powerful super late models, keeping your tires underneath you throughout the duration of a race is oh so important, and tire strategy is going to be a big thing we're going to be trying to keep pace with all race long.
We touched on two big strategy things right before we went through our starting grid. The first was that we're going to have 50-lap competition cautions except within the last 10. The other is that these drivers get 8 tires to work with over the course of this race. They picked up 4 tires before they qualified today. These drivers are all starting on the tires that they qualified on. They also have 4 tires that they can change throughout the 200 laps. However, they can only change or rotate 2 tires within a single pit stop or take fuel. So you have to choose tires or fuel throughout the pit stops over the course of 200 laps. You can have 2 or 3 laps with the comp yellows to be able to come in, and that's a huge part of the strategy and how you attack this Governor's Cup.
The Hoosier Rubber is going to be very important all race long. We mentioned one of the favorites out of Pinellas Park, Florida, Stephen Nasse, with a problem pre-race. Let's go down to Jacqueline Drake, who's got an update.
Standing here trackside, and Stephen Nasse in that number 51, who originally qualified in the 7th position, is now pitted right behind us. They've pulled off the car twice now, dealing with power steering issues. The servo is loose, so the ACR team has been all hands on deck to fix that and send him back out to start this field. Unfortunately, that will give him a penalty to where he'll have to fall back to the rear of the field, but he's got 200 laps to get it done, and he feels extremely hopeful that he'll be able to.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Nasse, a 2-time, nearly 3-time Winchester 400 winner, All-American 400 winner, Southern Super Series champion. He's won just about everything you can imagine, including at this racetrack, except for this race. I bet you would imagine now that they've been dealt the hand in which they have in terms of luck here for this race. As Jacqueline mentioned, he'll now have to forego his top 10 starting spot and start at the back. I bet it would be quite the statement if he finally captures that Governor's Cup victory in the manner in which he's going to be forced to try to do so coming from the tail end of this stacked field.
He's won just about every big super late model race and been competitive in them everywhere across the country except for this and the Snowball Derby. Across the finish line first in the Snowball Derby a few years ago. He's not won the Governor's Cup. He's been runner-up here. But knowing him, these are the 2 races that matter the most to him because he's from just across this state, the Gulf side of the state. Pinellas Park, Florida is where he calls home. So this is a track that he knows as well as any that you see in the NASCAR Roots portfolio and any that hosts the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. So this one, I have to believe, means a little bit more. And knowing how emotional he can be, we talk about the Class C or nasty Stephen Nasse, depending on what kind of race he has. This is one where he can get fired up, but it's just because he wants to win it that bad as a hometown driver.
And ironically, while this is not going to be a leading talking point, it is going to be a storyline we are going to keep tabs on. He was initially scheduled to start behind that of Giovanni Ruggiero. We mentioned he was almost a 3-time winner at the Winchester 400 before they got together. Well, they were going to start nose to tail. Now Nasse's been drop kicked to the back, but perhaps the most detrimental thing from the field has been that of the fact that Nasse seems confident, even though he's going to have to start 24th on this grid.
Got a lot of time to make it up, no doubt about it. There are 200 laps. You've got a full field of cars, and they do string out here at New Smyrna. You carry so much speed. We saw that yesterday in the prelude to the Governor's Cup. A lot of the fields and a lot of the races got very spread out. So once this goes green flag, it will be easy if he's got a fast car to pick through this field. And then you have the pit stops to try and adjust for the weather, adjust for where other cars are running on the racetrack. So it makes the task a little bit more difficult to not have the track position that he would have had. But it's not impossible.
Just another element of this race, and we haven't even taken the green flag just yet. All the drivers have been introduced and now climbing into their car, and the fans here at New Smyrna Speedway are inching closer to the point of getting this race underway. Right now, as a matter of fact, one of the special dignitaries of this event, Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, is saying a few words to the crowd. We'll chime in on that conversation as we get closer to the start of this race. Let's go back down trackside. All right, it was nice to hear from Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, who was holding down the fort down there as one of the special guests here. But as they mentioned down trackside, the way in which driver introductions fell, the front row starters are still getting buckled into their race cars. So the command is, quite literally, moments away. With that in mind, though, how about Ashley Moody hyping up this crowd here and talking about the importance of this race? I love the fact she actually threw the joke in there. This is the one time I get to say this as an Attorney General. Drive it like you stole it. That was great.
That is really, really good, and always great to see support of local governments backing up the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, backing up NASCAR Roots tracks. That makes things a lot easier for the track, and it usually allows them to draw in a few more fans, which, to that point, we've got a lot of people here for the Governor's Cup. It's the first Sunday after the Cup Series season is closed and all the national stuff is done, so this is one of the biggest races in the United States this weekend, and we've got a lot of people here and a lot of people tuned in on Flow Racing as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is my first time coming down to the New Smyrna Beach area. What a town. What an environment. And oftentimes when we visit some of these racetracks, quite frankly, they may seem like they're out in the middle of nowhere. This is right off the main road, a stone's throw from I-95, and just about a 15-minute hike down to the beach. It's perfect, and it's incredible to be here at this venue. And we mentioned the history of this venue and the history of this racetrack, New Smyrna Speedway. It's known for big league races. Obviously, the several-day contest here held in the winter months with the World Series of Asphalt is a premier event that many, especially Northerners trying to escape the cold, look to try to come down here and enjoy. They have the Red Eye 50-50, part of the World Series of Asphalt, the Arts Blossom Race, the Clyde Hart Memorial 100, and they also have weekly series racing where they crown champions. We're going to do that today here as well in the super late models, but this is a racetrack which certainly could test your ability no matter what vehicle you are driving. But these super late models are going to be the biggest challenge that we see over the course of this two-day event.
It's a bit of a regional mecca for the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series when you consider the World Series and then the weekly program they run during the year and then Governor's Cup weekend. There are a few tracks that have as many races that go on at this level of NASCAR routes across the country than what we see here at New Smyrna. So this is a place where a lot of people have a lot of experience. William Byron won the Clyde Hart Memorial back during the World Series this past February, so we know he knows this place. But a lot of drivers here have a lot of experience, and let's also not forget, this is November. It's not February. The weather's a little bit different, and this is a temperature-sensitive track.
We have a lot of differing agendas in terms of what drivers are doing, maybe trying to prepare themselves. We heard William Byron mention for the Snowball Derby that's right around the corner. Some drivers and teams trying to figure out what they're going to do in 2024, perhaps commit to New Smyrna Speedway for a track championship. We shall see.
Well done. You're no rookie.
Lots of fun. Made it easy.
The long-awaited firing of engines here at New Smyrna Speedway. And finally, we get to hear the rumble of these super late models before they begin their parade and pace laps, leading us up to the start of this race with so many differing storylines littering throughout, not just the front row, not just the top 5, not just the top 10, but the entire field. As the engines were fired, and we see here the weather conditions, much different than what we've seen up to the lead up to the start of this race. A little bit of a breeze, a lot of overcast skies. We really haven't seen the sun at all day. And there is so much that we're going to be keeping our eyes on here as we get set to roll the field off for the start of their pace laps. And the New Smyrna Speedway itself is a track that is certainly full of a lot of character, and it's an interesting task.
It's a very, very fun place to race. And a quick place to open up in 1964. It's a half-mile in length. Lots of asphalt, lots of banking here at New Smyrna. 23 degrees in the corner. And the biggest thing we noticed, not only the racing last night, but talking to the drivers, there are two very different sets of lines that you take on the opposite ends of the racetrack. 1 and 2, you can run high, you can run in the middle, you can run low. But 3 and 4, everybody wanted to be on the bottom side of the racetrack. And we saw drivers try and set up a lot of passes out of turn 2 in particular to try and get runs down the back straightaway and get alongside people, because 3 and 4 end up being a little bit more narrow. So maybe a little Darlington-esque in that regard, perhaps.
And the other thing is, with these cars, we're known to see drivers attempt to quite literally steer with the throttle. And that's something in which we're going to be seeing here as these drivers come off the corner. And as we get later into a run and these drivers have more laps on that right rear, we may see that be a little bit more difficult, especially when trying to respect the car that may be to your outside. It's going to be a fun characteristic and element of this race. Should note that Stephen Nasse did get the car off the pit lane. He's going to join the tail end of the field and forego, as we mentioned, that 7th starting position. And there's a driver who will be starting on the outside of the front row, and George Gorham, who we heard from earlier. This is certainly a big event for him. He did not run here in 2021. His last race was in 2020, and he's looking to try to better what would be his best finish ever in this race, which was a 3rd. And we'll be watching this car all race long, and Stephen Nasse from the back of the 24-car pack.
You get a good look at Nasse's number 51. 3 drivers that I think are worth talking about. And I had the opportunity to chat with our track champion-elect Brad May, who is a green flag away from clinching the David Rogers Super Late Model Division title here at New Smyrna for 2023. But he had his eyes in particular on the driver starting in 3rd. In the number 30 car, Jesse Dutilli is one that he said to watch. He said, Jesse and I, we run similar programs. We're racers. We don't necessarily have the biggest budgets, but we find ways to maximize our resources and get the most out of what we have. Jesse Dutilli hasn't raced since the beginning of the year, but he said, that guy is really, really fast.
When we looked at the entry list and we started looking at handicapping some of the field, there were several names that jumped off the list, but there's been a lot of hometown drivers that we've been in positions to spotlight and highlight here as we lead up to the start of this race, with the field continuing on their parade and pace laps. All right, let's get a pre-race report from Jacqueline Drake before we go green.
A little bit of a dark horse in this field is going to be the number 33 of Daniel Webster, who qualified in that 13th position. Speaking to him earlier today, he said, I'm actually really surprised about how fast he is. He's a local to New Smyrna Speedway. He crews on many other different divisions in the right foot down motorsports. But that guy, Daniel Webster, he has quite a few laps around this place, and he might have something that these other drivers don't.
Thanks, Jacqueline. That's another name who, of course, carries a lot of weight in terms of being able to run well here as a local Florida native, and Daniel Webster in that 33. He is someone who's been around the sport for quite some time, 3-time winner this season in the SRL Sportsman Series. And Pike, he too is going to try to be. We don't have a former winner of this race on the entry blank, so we're going to have a new winner. The question remains, who is it going to be?
Daniel Webster strikes me as the kind of driver who may not have the outright pace of one of the top 5 starters or someone, but somebody who could hang around, be there, know when to push, and maybe get a little bit more out of his car in the last 25 laps or so as the field receives the 2 to go from the flag stand. So we are not long away from starting off the 58th Annual Governor's Cup. You see the fans saluting the drivers and the drivers saluting all the fans who have come out to New Smyrna to attend this race in person.
The hands out the window net for all the competitors in the field, and all the fans here on the main straightaway came to their feet to salute these drivers as they are destined to be entertained by this 200-lap event. We mentioned some of the favorites coming into this race: William Byron, Giovanni Ruggiero, Stephen Nasse, Jesse Love, Anthony Sergi, but it was Michael Atwell, George Gorham, and Jesse Dutilli who were able to capture all the attention in qualifying. How does that parlay into the 200-lap agenda that is up the road for all of these competitors? We are 1 lap away from kicking things off as the lights are out atop the pace car. One car ducks to the pit lane on the final parade lap. That's Trent Hennick, who's going to start 23rd. We'll see if he's able to get out in time for the green as the field is navigating their way off the second turn. Pike, we are just about ready to go.
Lots of drivers, lots of talent here. Championships to be decided. We have to keep an eye on Brad May and the 9 Machine starting just a little bit further back in the 7th position. He is someone that really could make his name known and would love the opportunity to beat the big stars here in the 58th Annual Governor's Cup at New Smyrna Speedway. Green flag is out, and we are underway for the beach.
Atwell able to get the jump from the pole, slid up to kind of protect himself from Gorham there. Bottom lane on the move. Jesse Dutilli on the inside in the 30, trying to get by the 10 of Gorham, the outside front row starter, while Atwell leads the first lap. And Dutilli is by for second. William Byron now working the low side on the 24 car.
Byron immediately down to the bottom. Look at George Gorham trying to block him entering turn 3, and Gorham will keep him just behind for a moment. But Byron motoring down on the inside lane as he and Gorham continue to fight for that 3rd position.
That's the best battle on the racetrack right now for 3rd. Byron on the bottom. The blue and black number 20 just behind Byron on the 24 is Anthony Sergi, while Atwell continues to lead, opening up the gap by about 5 car lengths. But from second on back, it is starting to accordion together. And the battle for second is going to intensify. Gorham gets in the back of Dutilli, and we got trouble in turn 1.
One car around in the middle of the corner. First caution flag is out here at New Smyrna, and the field will slow and return to following the pace car as we get set to go back under the yellow here. One car around, down, stuck in the middle of turns 1 and 2, stopped on the inside of the racetrack. Didn't look like that car took any damage, so will have the opportunity to right itself, get itself pointed in the correct direction, and get back going. I didn't see too much damage, though, and I don't see damage on any of the rest of the cars in the field either. A lot of people were able to check up in the middle of the corner and avoid that.
Out of our vantage point on the front straightaway, it looked like Jesse Love was trying to make a move after he started in the 8th spot and was racing in and around some of the cars down the front straightaway into turn number 1, but somehow everybody was able to avoid the spinning car.
So, I don't know if you quite call it a false start per se, but we didn't get a lot of laps in once we took the green flag. And always one of the more interesting mental aspects of a race that starts off like this, when you've got so much hype, especially for a race that hasn't been run in 2 years, and you're all excited, and you finally get the green flag, and you're getting ready to settle in, and then you get a quick yellow like this. How much does that sort of break your concentration, and how much do you have to sort of get yourself geared back up to get back after it? Because you've got 200 laps. It's not a short race here.
It certainly puts you in a precarious position as far as being able to try to find a rhythm, which is going to be so important in a race of this distance and of this measure. But it's also going to reset the potential of seeing a yellow in terms of our competition caution, being that we are now 3 laps in. And again, every 50 consecutive green flag laps is when we would see a yellow, as the car that brought out the first caution of the race, Jonathan Nee, in the flow coating number 8, brings his car to the attention of his crew.
Also worth noting that caution laps do not count over the course of these 200. So we will restart working lap 4 of 200 when we get back green flag racing as NASCAR gets serviced and the field continues to circulate behind the pace car at New Smyrna.
While that was going on, the battle for second started to get a little bit intense between that of Jesse Dutilli in the 30 and George Gorham in the 10. We saw Gorham start on the outside when they came to the green and kind of struggled a little bit on that top lane, especially after the race leader Michael Atwell was able to cross the bow of that car going into the first corner to cement the top spot all to himself. And then after that, Gorham was on a little bit of a comeback trail to get up to second. They made a little bit of contact into turn 1 while the field kind of tangled behind them. And one other thing that we should mention here, Pike, just as we saw with all of the races last night, and we'll see it all afternoon, the choose option is going to be in effect for these drivers as well. The inside may seem like the preferred lane, but if you could time your start and have an edge off of turn number 2 and carry more momentum, the outside can work in a super late model.
And that was a theme that we saw across a lot of the races in the prelude last night, and especially in the middle of turns 1 and 2 off to the exit of the corner, entering the back straightaway. There were a lot of drivers who used the outside to try and set up passes or tried to duck underneath people on the inside and cross them over on corner exit to go alongside them down the back straightaway. That corner in particular might be the raciest of the 4 here, and we will see plenty of passes set up in that spot on the racetrack over the course of 200 laps.
At the choose on the front straightaway, it was Atwell who picked the bottom, Dutilli in the 30 on the outside, Gorham in the 10 inside of row 2. Outside is going to be that of William Byron. Anthony Sergi also elected the outside. He'll be outside of row 3 with Gio Ruggiero on the bottom in the 22. Here they come back to the restart. 3 laps in the books, and we're back underway.
Atwell with the jump on the inside. Dutilli there trying to hang on the quarter panel. Can't quite do it. So Atwell to the lead. Here comes Gorham down on the bottom. Byron up high, and I couldn't tell. He got tight. Might have clipped the fence there on the exit of turn 2. Did William Byron. The front 3 begin to skate away, and Byron now has a battle with the 22 of Gio Ruggiero for 4th on his hands.
There's a little bit of damage to the right rear fender of Gorham's car after he washed up and caught the left front of the 24 of William Byron off 2. That could have been a massive accident if Byron hadn't lifted in time. It is Atwell out in front. Battle for second rages on the main straightaway.
Dutilli and Gorham door to door in the middle of 1 and 2. And Dutilli's got that top line that you have the ability to move, and he ends up tight out of turn 2 and will lose a few spots both to Gorham and to Byron.
Boy, it seems like everybody is washing up the hill off of turn number 2. And if you're side by side at that point, the car on the outside is being put in a position to make some very difficult choices. And each time we have seen the car on the outside nearly catch the concrete.
Got really, really close there. And now as this field starts to string out, we'll start to see who's got speed, who will begin to make a charge up to the front, and who will have the opportunity to try and chase down Michael Atwell for the race lead. He's stretched it out now by 0.7 of a second already.
Atwell out in front of Gorham, as you mentioned, by just under 1 second. William Byron up to 3rd. Running in the 4th position is that of Dutilli, and then Gio Ruggiero, your top 5, as they come back down the main straightaway. Quick update on Stephen Nasse. Had to start shotgun on the field. He is already carving his way up through the running order. 11th the last time through. 1 spot shy of the top 10 already. Less than 10 laps into this race. There you see the 51 car continuing to climb his way further forward.
Stephen Nasse is working that outside lane, which you can do even in 3 and 4. It's not preferred, but it's definitely an option. He'll look to the inside of Daniel Webster here and then tuck back in line. But that's already about half the track position he needed to make up in the span of, 10 laps? Not a bad start for Stephen Nasse, given the way things went before the green flag dropped.
He also picked the inside lane on the last restart for the choose, so he didn't take any too major of a swing in terms of a chance by jumping up to the less populated outside the last time by. But Nasse, as Jacqueline mentioned in the hit earlier, he is very confident in this race car, and despite the problem, he is starting to make his way to the front.
Good battles with Stephen Nasse. Also a good battle developing for the 4th position between Jesse Dutilli and Gio Ruggiero. They just about banged quarter panels down the front straightaway last time by. As you get a good look at your leader, Michael Atwell, who still has that buffer. It's increased to 0.9 of a second, so he's stretching it out, and everybody else is fighting for position behind him.
Atwell clearly out in front. Here is the battle for fourth. Down in turn number 1. Ruggiero on the bottom, and there's Dutilli able to make that outside lane work for him in terms of a defensive measure. Gets a good launch off that second corner. Ruggiero, though, back to the power in the middle of the corner, back to the bumper, and looks low as they enter turn 1.
Gio Ruggiero has been really confident the last few weeks. Won the Winchester 400 up in Indiana a few weeks ago. Has shown a lot of speed early in this race. And I can't tell if he's actively trying to get by Dutilli or if he's just trying to pressure Dutilli into a mistake. They're both valid strategies. You can try and employ either one. I wonder if we'll get the answer to that over the course of the next 5 to 10 laps or so.
That fight continues on, and they're pulling in Anthony Sergi in the 20 car. Another Florida native making his 11th Governor's Cup start. His best finish in this race was 4th. When it came down to practice, though, he was one of the fastest cars here yesterday in the morning session, and Sergi is starting to float his way up towards the front of the field, while your leader is about to encounter a car that was on the pit lane at the start of this race. He works his way around the outside of the 17 of Trent Henrick to put him a lap down.
So Hennick goes a lap down. Atwell makes the pass. Byron's going to be there in a moment. The top 10 have all finally settled things for a moment. The best battle amongst them, Sergi and Ruggiero, and then Stephen Nasse trying to work over Michael Goddard for the 9th position.
A lap ago, Bobby Good, who was running in the top 10, white-walled the tires on his car off of turn number 4. He keeps it going. The race stays under green. Still watching this fight unfold here, as now William Byron has gotten up into the 2nd position ahead of that of George Gorham. Now we'll start to check what the margin is from the race leader in Atwell back to Byron, who is now your new runner-up. It was 9/10 of a second a lap ago, and Byron was 1/10 of a second faster that last lap.
Battle for the lead incoming, perhaps, is a driver who just came off of a championship 4 run at Phoenix Raceway in the NASCAR Cup Series, comes to the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series in the Governor's Cup, and is definitely making moves half a tenth faster than Michael Atwell that last time by. It's 8.5 tenths of a second, so it's ever so slightly coming back together, that gap between P1 and P2.
Race continues on this green flag stretch here. If the race should stay green, we would see a caution on lap 53 in terms of 50 consecutive green flag laps as things start to settle out here throughout most of the pack for the moment. The best fight is starting to materialize in what seems to be about the 4th position in a battle that won't go away between that of Jesse Dutilli in the 30 and the 22 of Giovanni Ruggiero.
I wonder if the folks at Donnie Wilson's camp have gotten on the radio to Ruggiero and told him something along the lines of, hey, wait up, we'll be okay, as we saw Anthony Sergi get way wide over in turn 1 last time by Brad May, able to get to his rear bumper, and that broke up the battle that we had between Ruggiero and Sergi. But one of those cases where I wonder if they told him, hey, look, you don't necessarily have to go past Jesse Dutilli now. You've got almost 175 laps to work with. You don't have to force the issue at this point. Let's just ride, conserve the car, and make sure we have something for the end of this race when it really matters.
Unfortunately for the race leader, Michael Atwell, he's going to encounter a couple of cars on the tail end of the lead lap that are battling for position. It's the 78 of John Kaufman, the 73 of Bobby Gordon. They'll yield to the bottom of the racetrack in turn 3, forcing Atwell to go high. And this is going to allow Byron a chance to close potentially off the corner, as the battle for the lead will start to tighten up even more.
8/10 to 6/10. The lap traffic cost Atwell 2/10 of a second that last time by, and now Byron might be able to get a toe off the rear end of Atwell's number 55 machine and may tighten up this battle for the lead even more.
Atwell and Byron continuing to tussle for position on the main straightaway, as now the rest of the field is going to start to work their way through some of the traffic that ensues, with now Byron setting up high in 1 and 2.
Also worth noting that Stephen Nasse just got around Anthony Sergi, so Nasse up to 8th after the power steering issues that plagued him before the green flag drop. He is charging back to the front in a hurry. He's the Pinellas Park, Florida native.
The gap between the top 2 about 6/10 of a second. As they work their way down the back straightaway and into turn 3, they've got a pretty large margin over what is starting to be a 3-car fight for the 3rd position between George Gorham, the outside front row starter, Jesse Dutilli, who's 4th, and Gio Ruggiero right there, with Stephen Nasse working his way further forward, now on the back bumper of Jesse Love in what is a battle for 7th in turn 1.
Nasse wasting no time, and this is typical to who he is. Some drivers don't mind riding around the racetrack and saving their car from later. Some drivers like to control races from the front, and Nasse definitely falls into the latter camp of those two schools of thought. So I'm not shocked at all that he's made the decision to make the charge up front, maybe burn the tires up a little bit more than some of the other drivers, but get that track position back, as Jesse Dutilli was just able to pass George Gorham for third.
Dutilli and Gorham having a tussle of it as they go down to turn number 1. It's going to pull everybody kind of closer up here as Love continues to hold that spot. You saw momentarily there a look at that battle for third. Here's the margin between first and second, as Byron has pretty much been able to chew up the gap in which Atwell was able to exercise at the start of this race, but not enough in terms to be able to mend the challenge. But it is still very early with still 170 laps to go.
It's stabilized pretty consistently at just around the 0.6 of a second marker the last 5 or 6 laps. There hasn't really been much difference in the lap times between Atwell and Byron. That time by pretty much dead even, a 1915 to a 1916, so 100th of a second in Atwell's favor as we look at the battle between the 22 machine of Gio Ruggiero and George Gorham, really getting after it here for the 4th position.
The two of them almost came together at the end of the front stretch. Now Gio slides up the racetrack, almost catches the door of Gorham off 4, and they touch that time into turn 1.
They bounce off of each other. Also, keep note of the driver just behind them. Brad May in that red and white number 9 car picked up the track championship in the David Rogers Super Late Models when they took the green flag. He's just been sort of hiding in the back half of the top 10, and as one of the most experienced drivers here, runs the weekly series and the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly series here at New Smyrna. This is a driver that's got plenty of skill and plenty of know-how and how you need to attack this race and whether or not you really need to push as hard as we see Gorham and Ruggiero pushing right now.
Again, it's the battle for 4th position as Gorham's car appears to be fading just a little bit after qualifying so well at the start of this race. Giovanni Ruggiero, we mentioned the fact that he captured top honors at the Winchester 400, also the 2023 Southern Super Series champion and a 2-time winner on the ASA Stars Tour. That includes the Winchester 400 victory. Now he's trying to add himself to the list of winners here at the New Smyrna Speedway, and they are threading the needle through traffic as Brad May is on the back bumper of Ruggiero now for that spot, with Stephen Nasse coming as well.
That is a proper 4-pack fighting for position. They work their way around the lap machine of Ross Francisco, and then they will come to Trent Hennick to the outside there too. Francisco now up in the groove trying to clear Hennick, and that'll bottleneck everybody behind this battle. Absolutely nowhere for Ruggiero to go.
And Gorham got a little bit loose there trying to get to the outside of Hennick, the lap car. Look at this battle for 4th on back, continuing to ratchet up here as the run goes on. It is Gorham who holds 4th, Ruggiero just behind in 5th, and Brad May in the 9. Stephen Nasse in the 51, who started shotgun on the field. Jesse Love and Anthony Sergi all part of this freight train.
Everybody all stacked up here as the lap traffic has got them together, and Ross Francisco continues to sit in the racing groove. I figured he might have pulled down here, or rather Gorham taking control of this group now that they've got space and they've got speed. Here comes Nasse to the inside of Brad May. He took a peek out the back of turn 2.
What more could be said about the charge up through the field for that of Stephen Nasse, and he is now racing around some of the heavy hitters in this field and has still been able to do quite well in terms of making that happen. Even with the potential power steering problem to start this race, Pike, it doesn't appear that Nasse has lost any confidence in the ability to wrestle that race car up closer to the top of the pylon.
My goodness, outside it was George Gorham leading this train, got all sorts of sideways out of turn 4 last time by. So wondering if he may be fighting the handling on this machine as they continue to hang out. Here comes Nasse once again to the inside of Brad May.
Nasse on the bottom of the 51, Brad May in the 9, off of turn number 2 and down the backstretch they come. Nasse now is going to get that position on Brad May. And now will set his sights on Giovanni Ruggiero to see if Nasse could crack the top 5. Less than 50 laps, less than a quarter of the way through this race. 41 in the books, 159 to go.
Stephen Nasse continuing to make his way towards the front. Next up on the list, Gio Ruggiero, who continues to battle with George Gorham. Everybody in the back of the top 5 has just been at fisticuffs with one another pretty much since the drop of the green flag, and it's allowed Atwell and Byron and Dutilli to escape. They are clear by 2 seconds over the battle for P4.
the gap between the front runners here as things continue to accordion together through the traffic. As they go down to the first corner, it's still Gorham who has been able to fend off the challenge from Ruggiero, now working his way to the outside of West Burton. We did see the battle for the lead come down to about 0.3 of a second. Atwell's built it back up, courtesy of the traffic. As here comes now Ruggiero on the back bumper of Gorham, and Stephen Nasse has entered the frame as well on the home stretch. Atwell still the leader.
Can George Gorham hang on to this when you've got two of the best and brightest in super late model racing behind him? You saw Ruggiero wash up the racetrack out of turn 2 that last time by. That allowed Nasse to close up on him. Gorham will slide up top. Ruggiero has the opportunity to go underneath. Gorham will try the roll the momentum on corner exit. Ruggiero tries to pinch. They, I think, made contact once again on the entry to turn 1. Gorham doesn't want to give up the track position. Ruggiero wants all of it down the backstretch.
We've seen that so many times between these two on the front straightaway as they come to 3. Now Ruggiero's got the lane. Can Nasse fill the hole on the bottom? Ruggiero makes the pass. Nasse has a fender inside maybe as they go to the first corner, and they also kick Gorham up to that second groove to maybe lose one more spot. Ruggiero is through. Nasse and Gorham side by side now for 5th.
Stephen Nasse with a big drive into turn 3 to clear Gorham on corner entry and lock down the position for himself. So Nasse now back in the top 5 for the first time this afternoon since he started from the rear, had power steering issues, had to replace the steering pump before we even took the green flag. He's made up about 15 spots on the racetrack in the opening 50 laps. That 51 machine is flying for Anthony Campi.
And he is going to be aided by the help of a competition yellow should this race stay green for a handful of more laps. 53 would take us up to the 50-lap consecutive green flag run. We're about 5 laps away from that now. Atwell's still out in front of this field, and he has been perfecting the art of working his way through traffic as he catches the tail end of the field, and he's been able to now open up the lead over William Byron by 1.5 seconds for that between the 55 and 24.
There's a little bit of lap traffic in the way. John Kaufman there trying to get out of the way for William Byron, and then you've got all sorts of speed amongst Atwell and company. Johnny Aramendia, the next car in line for these drivers to try and work their way around at the front of this field. But Atwell has run a really composed opening quarter of this race. Not really too much challenges, but just able to take advantage of clean air and click off consistently fast laps time and time and time again as the yellow flag comes out.
Caution flag will come out here on lap number 50.
Potentially could be our first competition caution of the evening. Afternoon, rather. Time zones have gotten a little bit mixed up. We spent so much time here at the track, Eric Brennan. It's been a fun few days at New Smyrna, whether or not they practice in the sunset or they've raced at night. We're racing in the afternoon today. Lots of action here down in the central part of Florida over the course of this weekend for the 58th Annual Governor's Cup.
Caution comes out right at the quarter distance mark, and as Pike mentioned, it looks as though this will in fact serve as the first competition yellow of the race, despite the fact that we did have the early caution 3 laps in. The yellow will come out here with 150 laps to go. And what has been all Michael Atwell at the front of the field, and he has perfectly worked his way through a lot of lap traffic. And he has lapped all the way up to 16th place after just getting by Johnny Aramendia prior to the caution. In fact, Aramendia is going to be the recipient of the free pass. So he will get back on the lead lap. That will give us 17 cars that are still on the lead lap when this race gets back underway.
Aramendia's got one of the most distinct machines in this field. You get a good look at the speed shot, the red and white and blue with the Lone Star on the side. You think he'd be from Texas, perhaps, Eric? Any sort of indication? Perhaps, maybe. The New Braunfels native will look to see if he can make a few adjustments on that car and get that closer up towards the front of the field here in this second segment.
Big operation, I should say big chance for that operation. Aramendia driving for Ben Kennedy Racing, which is located not that far from here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Nicknamed Johnny Crash, hearing the nickname from his father back when he used to ride dirt bikes. And if the Aramendia name seems like it is familiar, his uncle Joe Aramendia used to run some NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and Xfinity races back in the early 2000s, and that is what the car looks like. The car which has been in the family. If you look back to some of the schemes that were run back in 2003 or so, that was Uncle Joe's number 79. Very similar look.
Really, really, really cool to see the family history carried through on paint schemes. Not often that you see schemes carried on a regular basis. We've seen the one-offs, I think, immediately of any time Dale Earnhardt Jr. ran Ralph Earnhardt's car in the Cup Series back throughout his career. But to see it consistently on a regular basis, a little bit different and really, really awesome. I love traditions like that in grassroots racing.
That team fresh off a 14th place finish in the All-American 400 not that long ago. As the pits are open for the first time, and we're not going to see any of the front runners elect to come down, but several cars are going to come in either for adjustments or perhaps tire changes. But nevertheless, we are seeing a couple of cars take advantage of this pit stop.
A few cars beginning to make their way in for service. It's Brighton Horner that you see on your screens. Looks like he's going to take right side tires. So just a refresher on the rules here. If you come down for service, you can take fuel or you can take tires. You cannot do both on the same stop, and you can either change to or rotate to if you come down pit road. But again, not both. And you've got 4 tires that you can change over the course of 200 laps. Now, if these drivers end up incurring a flat tire for whatever reason, it's sort of standard short track policy in the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. If an official inspects that tire and verifies that the tire was flattened via contact or debris on the racetrack or whatever other reason, then there is a spare tire allocation available to these drivers if they need it. But just off strategy, they have the 4 to work with throughout 200 laps.
You saw the number 80 there of Brian Finney, who at the time of the caution was the last car to lead lap. They elected to come down for service. Finney trying to wrap up a top 3 finish in championship points for the super late models here at New Smyrna Speedway. As the drivers and teams who have elected to stop are getting the opportunity to work on their race cars, the field continues to navigate their way under caution with Michael Atwell and William Byron, your top 2, Jesse Dutilli, Gio Ruggiero, and Stephen Nasse, your top 5. Welcome back to the 58th Annual Florida Governor's Cup here at New Smyrna Speedway. We are under what is the second caution of the race. First one as a competition yellow. We saw a yellow early in this race on lap 3 after the 8 car of Jonathan Nee went for a solo slide. He continued on without incident. This yellow comes here right at the quarter distance mark of this event. I'm Eric Brennan alongside of James Pike. Jacqueline Drake has been handling all the duties for us trackside. And we've already seen a lot of close calls, a lot of close racing, and a lot of comers and goers. Perhaps no greater goer than that number 51 of Stephen Nasse, up into the top 5 from last on the grid in less than 50 laps to start off this race.
It was a classic Stephen Nasse sort of run to the front. The pride of Pinellas Park, Florida, loves to lead laps, loves to dominate races. He does not just want to win them and sort of Kevin Harvick closer style, get the lead at the very end. He wants to lead every lap, win the race, have the fastest lap, hit the whole Triple Crown, and be the dominant driver on the property this weekend. And didn't have the track position he wanted when we started. They had to change out a steering pump. There were power steering issues with that machine, so he had to go to the tail end of the field when we took the green flag. But it was a really impressive drive to see him and that number 51 for Anthony Campi Racing go all the way inside the top 5 in a quarter of this race. If you see that, I'm a little bit nervous if I'm anybody else up towards the front of the field. But here's the other thing. I don't know if we've seen all of the drivers in the top 5 truly show their hands. And I would think a lot of them are probably trying to save a little bit so that they don't show all their cards until the last 50 laps. Maybe we've seen a little bit more of Nasse's hand than some of the competitors up front, and that may be a strategical disadvantage to him as we get closer to the end of this race. It's just something we'll have to watch.
One of the favorite pieces that I was able to extract from our pre-race coverage leading up to opening ceremonies was the interview in which Jacqueline Drake did with William Byron. And I love the fact that he was open and honest about, I've never run a super late model race here that was more than 100 laps. Now, granted, he's won a few super late model races here that were 100 laps. This is an entirely new element, and it starts from the top to bottom. You mentioned Nasse, of course, who is known for traveling around in many of these races. Well, how about your race leader in Michael Atwell, the number 55A? He is someone who is local to this racetrack. He's 4th in points, has a win on the regular season here at New Smyrna Speedway. Now, granted, he too may be in a little bit of uncharted territory when we get towards the latter portion of this race, but he's making his 5th Governor's Cup start. So he's run this race before in terms of knowing what to expect when all that unfolds. He has 2 prior top 10s. His best finish here was 6th back in 2017. He is bettering that by a large margin by the fact that he's been able to lead since the drop of the green flag, and he already has a couple of big name races on his racing resume. 2-time and defending Billy Bigley Seeley Memorial winner at 417 Southern Speedway, but he is someone who knows that he is going up against national super late model teams, national household motorsports names like that of William Byron, his chaser. This could be a huge day for the likes of someone like Michael Atwell or some of the other competitors who are in similar shoes.
Michael Atwell, I think we get to watch. Jesse Utilli sitting in the 3rd spot, also part of the mix. George Gorham qualified up near the front of the field. We heard Jacqueline Drake talk to him earlier. Again, some of the local drivers who understand that you've got the Byrons, the Ruggeros, the Nasses, the Loves and company all here, and they want to prove a point that just because you've got all the resources of the national powerhouse teams doesn't necessarily mean that immediately translates to speed, and sometimes it's that knowledge of this track in particular that makes all the difference.
150 laps to go. All the front runners stayed out, so they are on 50-lap old plus qualifying tires. Michael Atwell, William Byron lead us back down for the restart. Everybody's got their hands full, and Nasse is off the pace on the front stretch.
He did not get going, and the 8 machine of Jonathan Nee has gone around on the front straightaway, and immediately the yellow flag comes back out. But what was the issue with Stephen Nasse? Did he just not get going, or is there actually something mechanical wrong with that 51 machine?
There were a handful of cars that got on the throttle a little bit too much as they came down for the green flag. The 10 and our outside front row starter George Gorham was one of them. In the stack up behind him though, Nasse immediately slowed, and he is coming to the pit lane. Perhaps as soon as he got back up through the gears, maybe that power steering issue started to reel its ugly head. But it appears as though it might be a different issue that is plaguing that number 51 car.
We'll keep an eye on what happened with Stephen Nasse as the crew works on that car. We'll get a good look here from our speed shot right next to the start-finish line is what happened to Jonathan Nee, and he just got sideways off of the exit of turn 4 as they came back to the green flag. I couldn't tell whether or not he got help, but off into the grass he goes. No damage. Major damage, at least once again, but Nee is the reason for the yellow for the 2nd time. It's the 3rd caution of the afternoon as you see the crew working on the right front of Stephen Nasse's machine.
Going to work on Nasse's car, and as you mentioned, the attention appears to be on that right front tire. Not sure if it was necessarily going down or if it had a leak. We'll try to do our best to get an update as they continue to work on that car.
Very nervous times, and especially as good as that car was. You wonder if maybe that hard charging might have, I guess, loosened a few bolts on that thing that they have to tighten up, for lack of a better term.
That appeared to be where the issue was. The good news is they didn't go underneath the hood, so this doesn't appear to be related to the power steering issue that he had earlier on in this race. He's going to get back out here, but after working from the back of the field up to the top 10, Pike, he's got to do it all over again.
All that track position gone. Just like that. And if you wanted to see it once, you get the opportunity to watch Stephen Nasse proverbially look at the crowd and say, want to see me do it again? Because he's going to have a whole lot of work. But it was fun to watch the first time. So the second time around, it may be even more entertaining.
And I think the one thing that's going to be a little bit more treacherous for that of Nasse in his effort to get back up towards the front of the field, it's going to be the fact that there are a lot of cars right now that are not handling all that well. We saw it on the restart attempt. A lot of cars got very sideways, perhaps a little bit too aggressive with trying to get back up to the power, being that these tires now have a lot more laps on them than they may have had all weekend long. You don't really see a lot of long runs in the short condensed practice sessions and a lot of track time that's available to these drivers. Many of these competitors have not felt that with this particular car on this particular racetrack at this time of the year with this big of a weather swing as well over the last 24 hours. So for Nasse, he may need to be a little bit more careful getting around some of these cars, and he is not the only one who has had a problem. That's Wes Burton, who is getting some attention here on the left front of his race car.
Lots of people underneath the side of Wes Burton's number 13 machine trying to fix that up as the hood will go back on, hood pins will go into place, and they will send him on his way. And we will get back to green flag racing shortly here with a lot of drivers ready to go after it again. I'll be curious to see, now that William Byron has a little bit better track position than he had on the initial start, will he be able to make a proper charge on Michael Atwell, and or will Atwell be able to get away from the field the same way he was in the first quarter of this race?
We're going to find out in about one lap's time. Field is coming down the main straightaway to hit the choose. It looks like they are going to try to push Wes Burton off to get him to rejoin the field. However, as they come to the choose this time, it looks very similar to what we had the last time that we attempted to restart this race, with still 3/4 of the distance left to go. Michael Atwell is elected the bottom. William Byron on the outside. Jesse Dutilli in third. Gio Ruggiero outside of row 2. And then it is George Gorham in the 10, who got really sideways on the last restart attempt, with Jesse Love outside in the 20, your top 6.
Pace car will pull off. Atwell will be in control of this. Will it be a cleaner restart this time around? Everybody back up to the gears and back up the speed at New Smyrna. Atwell, Byron, door to door once again. And look at William Byron take Atwell 3 ride. Dutilli on the inside to get second away as Byron goes to the race lead for the first time this afternoon.
Byron made the top side work. Contact for third. And that's Atwell getting run up high by Gio Ruggiero in the battle for the third spot.
They were ready to pounce on Michael Atwell, and pounce they have. Byron takes the lead. Dutilli to second. Now Ruggiero to third. And Jesse Love, all of a sudden, we haven't seen him much in the top 5 this afternoon yet, but he now is working his way up to 5th, fighting to the inside of Anthony Sergi, and he may try and get 4th from Atwell here soon.
Love only 2 cars behind that of his Donnie Wilson Motorsports teammate Giovanni Ruggiero. What's going to be a swan song effort for him in his final couple of starts under the Toyota Racing banner. Love to 5th.
They are very, very racy at the front. All sorts of battles here. See Brad May just a little bit further back. The track champion now for 2023 in the David Rogers Super Late models here at New Smyrna. Working to the inside of Daniel Webster for position. These front 4 have started to split themselves from the rest of the field as May will compete the pass a little bit further back. That's the highest battle on the racetrack so far. And Stephen Nasse's already gotten a few spots too. He's moved his way back up the field into the 15th position after the restart.
All the while, your race leader, William Byron, out in front by a half second. Here's some of the racing going on in the midfield. As you see, Brad May in the number 9 going to the inside of a very sideways number 27. That's Good, who got loose up off the corner. And our 2023 and back-to-back champion here at New Smyrna Speedway in Super Late models. As we got one blowing up in turn 1. Look out! Up into the wall hard. That's Gorham. And everybody somehow gets by.
Race over for George Gorham. He had so much speed, qualified so well, and this is going to be such a disappointing end so early in this race after that car had been one of the best in this field, had been top 5 all race long, and all of a sudden he is stuffed in the outside wall in turn 1 as the safety crews come to attend to him and get him out of the race car. But sad end to one of the local heroes here.
There was one car in the mix of that battle. I believe it might have been that of Bobby Good, who hit the fluid that was laid down at the end of the front stretch and got all crossed up going into the corner. It almost looked like it was going to be a replay of what we saw at the All-American 400 at Nashville when the track was littered with fluid. But the field did an amazing job getting by there and not having more cars get up and into the wall. Unfortunately, it was only that of car number 10 of George Gorham.
Crew's still working on getting Gorham hooked up to the wrecker and getting him back to the infield to get that car serviced. They might get a chance to see what was wrong. I couldn't tell if there was any fluid laid down on the outside line there entering turn 1. We saw Bobby Good slide around there in turn 1, but Bobby Good had been sliding around pretty much every corner he exited on this racetrack for about the 2 or 3 laps prior to that caution. I was watching his battle with Brad May, and he was loose on entry into 3, loose on the exit of 4, so I'm not sure if that was fluid or just Good's car not handling the way he would like at this point.
It appeared that the mechanical issue happened right at the end of the front straightaway, right about where these cars would start to hit the rev limiter chip. And that 10 car, who had been so fast all race long, started on the outside of that front row and now finds himself going off on the hook with 145 laps still to go as we are under our 4th caution of this race. We start to inch closer to what could be an opportunity for some of these teams to think about how they want to approach the strategy element of this race. As you see the hard working track crew here at the New Smyrna Speedway now working on recovering the vehicle of George Gorham.
As Gorham gets cleaned up, we'll take a quick moment to get a commercial break in, and then we'll be back with more action here from New Smyrna Speedway. It's the 58th Annual Governor's Cup live on Flow Racing.
Cleanup continues down in turn number 1 on what is the 4th caution flag of the 2023 running of the Florida's Governor's Cup here at New Smyrna Speedway, as the yellow came out with 145 laps to go after the second fastest qualifier in George Gorham out of Winter Haven, Florida, had something come undone underneath the hood of that race car. He made significant contact with the turn 1 wall. The caution comes just a handful of laps after we saw a competition yellow with 50 laps being complete. On the ensuing restart, that driver in William Byron was able to get around the leader at the time in Michael Atwell, and he will be holding serve for the upcoming restart.
I filed away that pass, not necessarily from Byron, but the fact that Jesse Dutilli was able to go 3 wide on Atwell and just went straight down to the bottom on the exit of turn 2 and made it very competitive right off the jump. To me, that says a lot about what some of these leaders and what some of the local drivers think of the track position and of clean air and of its importance. Dutilli clearly believes that it means something. Otherwise, I don't think he would have been as aggressive as he was in what is still relatively early on in this race.
Byron, of course, trying to add to what is already an impressive stretch of racing in super late model competition. Won the Money in the Bank 150 at Berlin last year in 2022. Won a couple of races here over the course of the last 2 years of the World Series of Asphalt as well. And he mentioned in his pre-race interview that some of this is to knock the rust off, transition from the responsibility of driving the Cup car, to which he did quite well this season. 6 wins, battled for the championship just 1 week ago. But they're also shifting their focus here to super late model racing, not only here but for the upcoming Snowball Derby as well. Momentum's a big deal in super late model racing across the board, as it is in any type of motorsports. So for Byron and that team to be able to come out here and perform well, maybe even go to victory lane for the first time in this particular event, I'm sure that they would love to try to carry some of that, what Dave Despain would call it, keep good mojo, on with them to Pensacola, Florida in just a handful of weeks' time.
If your intent is to try and run well at Snowball, this is the best race leading up to that you can run, because the level of competition is so stiff here at New Smyrna. So if you're really trying to go with an iron sharpens iron sort of school of thought in your preparations, you need to be here at New Smyrna. You need to run.
Well, with William Byron running in the top spot, there's another NASCAR champion in the field on the ARCA Menard Series side. It's Jesse Love. He's running in 5th. Let's learn more about his races unfolding. Let's head down to Jacqueline.
Down here in the pits of Donnie Wilson. Down here in the pits of Donnie Wilson Racing, who said they are a little bit concerned about the mist that's currently going on here at New Smyrna Speedway. The number 20 of Jesse Love had a little bit of a rough start in this Governor's Cup 200, but he's feeling a little bit more comfortable. However, the conditions have changed drastically here. It's cooled off quite a bit, and the mist is continuing to increase. The team's a little bit concerned if that's going to be affecting the drive towards the latter half of this feature event. We'll find out in the restart up ahead.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And I will say, you know, we did notice even under the last break, Pike, that it appears as though the ceiling may have lowered a little bit here. But if you look at the radar, there's nothing within close proximity to the racetrack. But there's definitely some moisture in the air as they come to the shoes this time through. And that may be something that is drawing a little bit of concern for some of the race teams. Not enough for us to stop this race by any stretch just yet. But it's one of those quirky Florida weather-related things that you have to deal with when you come to some of these venues.
And it's tough because the threshold for humidity down here in Florida is higher than it is in most places because you're obviously near the ocean. So it feels very humid for our team that's come out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But for a lot of the natives here, this is just a normal cloudy day, and it's something that these teams have to adjust to, especially if they don't race in Florida all that much. It looks like we're going to get the 1 to go from the flag stand, so we'll get the green flag to work lap 56 of 200 when they come around next time by.
It appears as though the wind has also picked up a little bit. We're seeing some of the gusts kind of kick around some of the flags that are not only on the flag stand but positioned throughout the pit area here as we are a lap away from the restart. How about this? First time we've seen this so far in this race. William Byron, the race leader, has elected the outside. Now that's how he got the lead on the last restart. It looks as though Byron's going to try to be able to make that top line work yet again to be able to hold the lead. Now that he'll be in control with this restart, Dutilli in the 30 on the bottom.
How aggressive will Michael Atwell B. How aggressive will Gia Ruggiero be as they get back to green flag racing? Byron and Dutilli off and away. Byron got a decent jump on the outside and might just clear Dutilli on the exit of the corner, but Dutilli roars back on the inside with a great run to make it a drag race down the backstretch.
Now they're dead even at the end of the back straightaway. Dutilli on the inside. William Byron in the 24 on the top side. Dutilli slides his way off the fourth corner, and Byron will protect the lead.
Byron just trying to take the air off of Dutilli's nose on corner exit and keep the momentum up. That's exactly what he does. So Byron back to the front, Dutilli to second, and Gia Ruggiero making his way up to the third spot. This is about as high as we've seen that other machine for Donnie Wilson all race.
And just behind him, the number 20 of Anthony Sergi, also methodically working his way towards the front of the field. He's been able to keep the nose clean so far in the afternoon. Has that 20 car. Sergi to fourth.
Sergi now in line with Ruggiero. Atwell back to fifth. Love sixth. Not really too many battles on the racetrack until you slide a little bit further back to Bobby Good, Michael Goddard, Daniel Webster and company. That's where the fight is, but the top 10 all beginning to click off laps here.
Field continuing to work their way down the back straightaway into turn 3. There's some of that battling that we're seeing as we got a car in trouble and up and into the wall. That's the 58 car that we were watching in that fight, and up and into the fence is that of Michael Goddard.
Goddard goes around in turn 3. Yellow flag comes out for the 5th time, and looks like the 58 will come down. The Fort Myers, Florida native will get the car back going on the racetrack, and he will catch up to the rest of the field. But yellow flag number 5 of the afternoon on lap 58.
Yet another caution flag. Fortunately for that of Goddard, he was not put in a position in which that car made significant contact with the outside wall. But Goddard is driving in anger back up through the field. We'll take a look at what happened. He was to the inside of that of Bobby Good and slides up to make light contact with the wall. And as we are watching right now, Goddard has driven up to and outside of Bobby Good to express some displeasure with the 27 car.
I'd say Michael Goddard has made his viewpoint known very well, and we'll get back in line, but certainly is not happy with the way that Bobby Good raced him. So that might be one to watch over the course of the next restart or so, as potential tempers beginning to brew here in the Governor's Cup as we work our way through. Field will continue to circulate behind the pace car as everybody gets the opportunity to enjoy cloudy day, cool but sort of temperate conditions. Not particularly wild temperature swings here, and the cloud cover can keep the sun off, which even though it's November in Florida, it was a very solid 80 degrees about yesterday with the sun. It certainly was not cold like it is in a lot of the country already.
Michael Goddard, one of the drivers who is also making his first Governor Cup start in the history of this race. And this is going to provide another opportunity for us to see what William Byron is going to elect to do on the upcoming restart, as they'll be hitting the shoes this time by. He elected the outside the last time. He's going to do it again this time. But Jesse Dutilli gave it a valiant effort on the bottom side, was dead even with Byron at the end of the backstretch after they took the green for the last restart when we wrapped up our 4th yellow of the race. This is now going to provide an opportunity for Dutilli to apply what he may have learned in that last effort to get the lead and see if he could apply it here.
Can Dutilli keep that car on the inside of William Byron, and can Byron do the exact same thing he did one restart ago and get enough momentum on corner exit to jump ahead of Dutilli and clear him down one of these long straightaways at New Smyrna Speedway? 1 to go for this field. When they come back across the line, we'll pick up the action on lap 59 of 200.
After expressing his displeasure with that of Bobby Good, Michael Goddard has assumed his position at the back of the running order. Still on the lead lap with no major damage to that car. You see a little bit of a scuff mark there just in front of the number on the right side door of that machine after him and the 27 of Good got together to slow this field for the 5th time. We are getting set for the restart with still 142 laps to go. We kind of hit a rough patch in this race after running several laps consecutive in green up to 150. We're wrapping up yet another caution here with Byron on the outside in the 24, the leader.
Pace car jumps away from the field. Byron in control of this. Dutilli on the bottom. We go back to green flag racing, and it was a better jump from Byron as Dutilli, I think, may have made contact from Ruggiero or got loose, couldn't tell, but he bobbled down the front straightaway, and now Ruggiero has the opportunity to run up top, and they almost ran each other into the fence. They both had to check up, so that allows Byron to increase his lead to maybe 2 or 3 car lengths in this opening lap after the restart, coming to lap 60.
And that has stacked the field up for second on back. Dutilli fighting hard on the bottom of Ruggiero to get second. He's going to lose that spot, and here comes the pole sitter Atwell in the 55. Now trying to make a move. Dutilli's going to protect the inside lane, and it's Ruggiero up into P2.
Gio Ruggiero up into second. The big story of this restart is Anthony Sergi and Michael Atwell continue to do battle for the 4th position in 1 and 2. Brad May jumps to the outside of Jesse Love. Love got loose as they checked up a little bit further back in the field. That sort of accordion its way through the rest of the bunch, but Brad May now up into the 6th position. That's as high as I think we've seen him all race.
May quietly working his way up through the pack as he continues to now hound the backside of the 55 of Atwell for the final position in the top 5 as they run, with Byron now ahead of Ruggiero. Dutilli back into 3rd position, and here is Atwell in the 55, May in the 9, Jesse Love in the 20.
And just behind Jesse Love, Stephen Nasse in the 51 machine, trying to make his way back up to the front for the 2nd time after coming down pit road and then lost his track position off the initial start, had to replace his steering pump, and now to the inside of Jesse Love. He will go and try and take away the 7th position.
If Stephen Nasse could somehow find a way to get up through this pack yet again and win this race, they may make it a rule that he's got to go to the back every 50 laps every year going forward, because it has certainly been fun to watch, and he is starting to cut that trail to the front yet again. The champion, back-to-back champion Brad May, next on his hit list as they come off turn 4. Nasse making his way back up towards the front of the field.
3 drivers that have a lot of experience at New Smyrna in line right there. Atwell had the initial speed. May, Swiss Army knife is the first thought that comes to my mind, just because he knows every single way you can attack this racetrack. We talked yesterday about how he was going to approach this race, and he said, I'm going to keep an eye on the weather, and I'm going to keep an eye on where other drivers are running, especially in turns 1 and 2, because you can go find another lane where other cars are not running on a green flag cycle, and it feels like a completely different racetrack. His words verbatim yesterday. And you saw it in turns 1 and 2. Atwell ran about middle of the racetrack. Brad May was able to go up the racetrack and tried to cut back down to the inside, like we saw so many drivers do in the prelude last night, to try and get a run on the inside down the backstretch to set up a pass on the inside in turn 3 and 4, where the bottom lane matters more. So keep an eye on Brad May when we got the cameras on him. If you want to learn a lot about how to attack New Smyrna Speedway over a long green flag run, there may be no better driver to watch than the Oviedo, Florida native in the number 9 car.
We walked into the pit area and we looked at who was here to contest for this race victory. Everyone was quick to say that William Byron was going to be the car to beat. But ever since getting out in front of the field, he has put himself in a position now to be hounded by that of Giovanni Ruggiero, who's worked his way up in the 2nd spot. Ruggiero is another driver in name who is actually on William Byron's lips when asked who he thought were going to be one of the cars to beat. They now find themselves in front of the field ahead of Jesse Dutilli, who was running in 3rd by about 1 second. The top 2 now starting to switch up how they're navigating their way around this half-mile oval as Ruggiero tries to find a bit of an edge.
Ruggiero won the Winchester 400. He won when the ASA Stars National Tour visited Hickory Motor Speedway back in May of this year. He's got a Cars Pro Late Model victory at Greenville Pickens from a year ago to his resume, and he's starting to build a nice career that I have a feeling is going to take him national level racing in the not too distant future. And now he's beginning to charge on William Byron and close up that gap to the race lead as we see the 73 machine slow. That's Bobby Gordon slow on the back straightaway that you see on your cameras as Byron and Ruggiero begin to close up for P1.
Looks as though Gordon is going to make it back to the pit area. That car seemed to labor coming off turn 4 1 lap ago. He does make it back to the pits. We stay under green. Here is the battle for the top spot. William Byron ahead of Gio Ruggiero. They are the top 2 that have broken away. Behind them, it is the 30 of Dutilli and Anthony Sergi, who are starting to knot together a two-car fight of their own for third. As you see, both Byron and Ruggiero now starting to run up the racetrack in turns 1 and 2, but they both seem to be committed to the bottom in 3 and 4.
Getting a report that the right front suspension broke on Bobby Gordon's machine. That's what brought the 73 down to pit road as the battle for first is heating up, as is the battle for third. This is Ruggiero and company. Then you've got Dutilli and Sergi racing for the third spot, as well as Byron begins to pick his way through lap traffic, and the gap has come down. Ruggiero was faster than our leader Byron by a 10th last time by as they come across the stripe. Yet again, Ruggiero up by a 10th. A 19.2 for Byron to Ruggiero's 19.1.
They're going to be working their way around a car that has been off the lead lap, and Trent Hennick, who had a couple of issues before this race went green. They get around Hennick's number 17 cleanly. At least Byron does. Now Ruggiero's able to make the move. There is another car further up the road that may also impact this fight for the lead. That is one of the several cars and teams that we have seen fielded by Team Marines and Kaufman Tack. That appears to be that of John Kaufman, who they're going to come up on the back of here on the main straightaway, with a gap now still about 2 car lengths between Byron, the leader, and Ruggiero, the runner-up.
So Kaufman there in the way as the third place battle continues to work their way up there to Trent Hennick. They were just able to get another lap down. They go down the back straightaway. Everybody fighting for position here. Dutilli trying to hang on to the track position, and Sergi again trying to work his way up. We haven't seen him up amongst the top 3, but he's been consistently in the top 10 all race long, so he beginning to make moves up front.
Had a chance to catch up with Anthony Sergi's spotter and Tony White yesterday afternoon. He said that this organization was very, very confident with what they had underneath them here this afternoon. And it appears as though Sergi is starting to allow some of that confidence to parlay into on-track performance as he runs in that 4th position and continues to hound Dutilli for 3rd. They've gotten through some of the traffic they're going to have to encounter here. So perhaps now that 20 car of Sergi, who is also a Florida native in the MJS Concrete number 20, to see what he could do to try to size up Dutilli for the final spot on the podium.
Like Brad May, also from Oviedo, Florida. And speaking of Brad May, he now sits behind Stephen Nasse as we continue, I guess we'll call it hashtag Nasse Watch, as he continues to make his second charge through the field. Nasse now up to the 6th position, working on Michael Atwell as you look at this battle here for 3rd between Dutilli and Sergi.
We saw Nasse get up to the top 5 when he ended up having his second problem of the race about a quarter of the way through, with Sergi and Dutilli continuing their fight for the 3rd spot. The battle for the lead is starting to heat up once again as well. Giovanni Ruggiero now within a car length of William Byron for the top spot, as we inch closer to the halfway point of this race for the Florida Governor's Cup at New Smyrna Speedway. William Byron is out in front. Giovanni Ruggiero trying to pounce on him.
I think there's a fair question to ask between these two. Who comes into this race with more confidence? Byron coming off of a career year in the NASCAR Cup Series. Ruggiero coming off a big win in the Winchester 400 up in Indiana at another high-banked racetrack. That's a half-mile, Winchester Speedway. There are definitely some parallels between that place and New Smyrna, especially in the sense of speed that you carry through the corners. So you wonder if some of the tricks that Ruggiero was able to use to get the victory lane and get the shotgun at Winchester maybe might be useful here to pick up the Governor's Cup at New Smyrna.
One of the interesting facets we're starting to see, especially down in turns 1 and 2, is how the groove is really starting to widen out just a little bit. 3 and 4 is not the same. Ruggiero washes up the hill a little bit there coming down the main straightaway. And it appears as though the fight for the lead is cooled off, at least for the moment. Not the case, though, in the battle for 5th.
Michael Atwell to the outside has it. Stephen Nasse to the inside wants it. And Nasse continuing to drive it in about as deep as anybody as I've seen in this field in turn 3 in particular. That may be where the 51 is strongest on this racetrack. Every time he's been able to close up half a car length on corner entry alone as he continues to hound the rear bumper of Atwell's number 55 down the back straightaway to take away the spot and get himself back into the top 5.
Atwell, the very popular pole winner for the regular competitor at this racetrack in super late models. Stephen Nasse, some may call him a national treasure. Some for good, some for maybe not so good. But he is certainly fast every time that he arrives at a racetrack. And he has been in quite the good mood. Every time that we've walked past him in the pit area working with that team, he seemed to have had a little bit of a smile on his face. And as we've heard and mentioned several times, he's expressed how confident that he is in his ability to get a good result here today. And even even though he's been plagued now with two separate circumstances that kicked him to the back of the field, Nasse continues to display the pace that car has, and we've yet to see any of the front runners come down for a stop. We're not even at the halfway point yet. Nasse's still knocking on the door to the top 5.
We're not at the halfway point, but we're not too far from it. 88 laps up the board. Halfway will be lap 100. So closing in on the cross flags from the flag stand. And Nasse, I think the only question I've got with his car is, given that he's had to make 2 charges to get all this track position back, when you've got 4 tires to work with, how many are you going to use? When are you going to try and burn up the rest of them? When are you going to make the change for tires? And if you're Nasse, have you burnt up your allocation more so than your competitors around you? And will you have anything left when it really matters, because you had to do all this hard racing in the first half? And then there's also the physical, the mental drain that they may take on him. So things to consider that have not gone in Nasse's favor that may play against him at the end of this race. Just things to watch as we carry on through proceedings here.
Battle for the lead is about to encounter the tail end of the lead lap pack as they come down to the start-finish line here. It is Byron still out in front of Ruggiero, but they have caught several cars that are running at the bottom portion of the field. First one they're going to encounter is going to be Ross Francisco in the 10F, and then several cars further up ahead, including Brian Finney, who is on the lead lap in 17th spot, also in danger of going a lap down as Francisco gives way to the top runners. And trouble right in front of the leaders, and that's Hennick, who is backed into the wall in turn 1. And Tully almost caught him there in the left front.
Oh, that was really, really close. And they were racing tight amongst that group. There were a lot of people there. Johnny Aramendia was there. Ryan Herbert was there. Michael Goddard was there. And Trent Hennick was just sort of in and amongst that bunch. He was working on a different lap than everybody else. But there, I think, was contact between Hennick and another car. And that sent Hennick up the racetrack. And heavy rear end damage to Hennick's machine. The number 17 driver out of Mims, Florida, now working in the right direction on the racetrack, but with lots of work to do to get that car fixed back up. We will expect him on pit road here shortly.
Hennick was several laps down at the start of this race after having to pit on the final pace lap before the field went green. In fact, he was 6 laps off the lead at the time of the incident down in turn number 1, which is our 6th caution of this race. Unofficially 9 laps shy from halfway.
Get a good look at Hennick's machine, a closer look at the damage. Now that he's down on pit road, he'll come to the attention of his crew, and they'll try and beat out that rear bumper just to get the spoiler set more than anything else. That's the most important thing, I think, that they'll have to look at here, because there's a significant amount of downforce that is created, and when that splits up, you lose sort of that unity amongst the rear spoiler, that clean surface that allows you to create more air pressure when these things move at speed. And when this is a track like New Smyrna, where you're carrying a lot of speed around this place, you need that downforce. You need a good working rear spoiler, and they'll have a lot to do to try and get it fixed up, and he's just going to take it behind the wall and see if they can't do a little bit more repairs there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the big question is going to be, is that going to be a new rear clip for that car, as he has now pulled back? It looks, you saw the crew just take a quick look to try to diagnose what it would take maybe if the issue was just cosmetic, but that was not the case for that car and that driver, as he is now going to have to work on loading up and trying to get prepared for whatever may be next. Now, this is the time in which we are going to see all of the lead lap cars, all of the front runners come down to the pit lane for service. The question becomes, what are they going to do?
All sorts of things to watch here, all sorts of combinations. We'll keep an eye on seeing a lot of left side tires for the leaders. Byron taking left sides, Jesse Love taking left sides. Looks like Gio Ruggiero taking left sides as well. So left side tires seem to be the call for pretty much everybody, Nasse included, I think, on that front. Lots of tire swapping here now that we've hit the halfway point. They're starting to dig into the allocation. A reminder, 4 tires available in the pits to these drivers over the course of 200 laps. And you can take as many as 2 on a pit stop, or you can rotate as many as 2 on a single pit stop, or you can take fuel. One of the 3.
See one of the hardest working crews so far here this afternoon, number 51, Stephen Nasse, and that organization who, for the most time, every time we've seen them come down the pit lane, they were thrashing. This, obviously, because of the fact this is one of the controlled caution opportunities for them to do work, not as much urgency as what we've had to see that team display in order to keep Nasse in the running. At the time of the caution, he was running in the 6th position. So right now, every car that remained in this race is down on the pit lane for service. The pace car is pretty much out there turning laps by himself at this point. Anthony Sergi, one of the top 4 runners right now, also receiving service from his team.
It would be fun to be the pace car and just get a few laps under your belt here, right? This looks like a really fun place to race around, I think. And to have the opportunity to lead the field in such a prestigious race like the Governor's Cup, got to be a huge honor to be able to wheel that thing around and get it around the high banks of New Smyrna.
You see the pace car here logging laps pretty much just by his lonesome in order to put down and also to give a good opportunity here to kind of scope out the racetrack. And we've mentioned that it is still only about 3:30 p.m. Eastern here in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, but you can see that it does appear to be getting a little bit darker outside. But again, the radar has not picked up any moisture in the vicinity of the racetrack, but that mist appears to be perhaps intensifying just a little bit, but not enough to stop this race.
And no weather on the radar that we can tell from the surrounding vicinity around New Smyrna Speedway. So yes, cloud cover hanging low over this half-mile facility, but no things to worry about. No spotters needing to come on the radio and say, you know, weather coming in 10 laps, go. Weather coming in 5 laps, go. No need to do that now. Now, you know, maybe if you want to try and be the leader at halfway, you might have a call like that from your team, from your crew, from your spotter up above. But this is more about long-term strategy, I think, for this field at this point as they begin to catch back up to the pace car and reset.
It's almost as if a lot of these teams are saying, hey, let's split the majority of this race strategy in half if we have to. The word down from Jack LaDrake trackside, though, is that mist that we had talked about has intensified in a pretty big way. Now, we're 9 laps shy of halfway as things run. As we see the cars now come off the pit lane, they'll be put back into their positions at the time of the yellow as per the controlled caution rule book, and then they'll hit the chews and we'll get this race back underway.
Minor adjustments for Stephen Nasse per Jacqueline Drake down on pit road. So maybe a few tweaks that they needed to make once they recognized what they were up against here in the first almost half of this race. 9 laps shy of the halfway point here at lap 91 in the 58th running of the Governor's Cup at New Smyrna Speedway. William Byron, your leader, then Gio Ruggiero, then Jesse Gentili, then Anthony Sergi, then Michael Atwell. Those are your top 5 that came off of pit road. I'm James Pike. He's Eric Brennan. We're here to bring you all the action live on Flow Racing in what is a major track and a staple of the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series.
Tremendous opportunity to come here to this racetrack. I've watched a lot of racing here at this facility over the several years. First time I've had a chance to come out here. Spent a lot of time with the track promoter Rusty last night and learned a lot about how they design, orchestrate, organize, and enforce their weekly racing that you'll get a chance to see some more of here once the super late models have wrapped up their portion of our coverage. And then, of course, the focus and attention will shift to the 2024 World Series of Asphalt at New Smyrna Speedway. And as we mentioned earlier, this area, even though right now the weather may not look like it's being 100% cooperative, it's comfortable outside. But the area and town around New Smyrna Beach, I never knew of it to be somewhat of a destination, but I've already told my wife that we're going to come back here and make sure that we bring the little one because there's so much to do. There's a lot of really good food spots, a lot of good hangout spots, and it appears as though that even at this time of year where a lot of people are starting to already shift their focus towards the holidays, everyone around here is just having a good time, and that's what we love to see. This is a great place to see a race, a great place to come on out and have some fun and bring the whole family with you. And we've seen a lot of families at the racetrack here this weekend as well, and today is no different. There are a lot of young race fans in the crowd today, and we'd love to see it.
The quintessential beginning of any racing career is all about bringing kids to the racetrack, bringing your family here, whether or not it's, you know, your area of the country, Wall Stadium Speedway, my home track, Bowman Gray Stadium, part of the NASCAR route system. Getting out to your local short track helps to create the next generation of NASCAR fans. It starts at NASCAR Roots and the local heroes and can eventually carry you all the way to the NASCAR Cup Series, but it all has to start somewhere. And venues like New Smyrna, no matter where you may be in the country, whether it's, you know, down here or all the way up at Alaska Raceway Park, the far northwest end of the NASCAR Roots footprint, get out to your local racetrack and go see what happens. Also, Alaska and Flow Racing, really, really cool place to watch weekly races. You get some incredible sunsets up that way.
And there really is a good delineage and connection between some of the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series events and the Advanced Auto Parts sanctioned venues in which we've referenced, but also to the national stage. And what are the, I happened to stumble upon this in doing some of my research for this event. We talked about Brad May in the number 9, who was having a good run here so far this evening, still in the top 10 and just won, or essentially clinched his second consecutive Florida Sunbelt Series championship here in the Super Late Models. But if you remember back to the midway portion of the Cup Series season, Advanced Auto Parts was running a program to highlight home tracks. And not only were tracks, but also some stars were part of that program. And Brad May was fortunate to have his name, along with his likeness of New Smyrna Speedway, on the race car that Ryan Blaney wheeled at the summer stop at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. As we know, Ryan went on to win the Cup Series champion this season. So the bridge that has been built between some of the home track heroes and stars like that of Brad May and those on the Cup level, thanks to our partners at Advanced Auto Parts, all of the tracks that participate, and all the support that we get from all of the partners who help make these things possible, it's evident, and it's really fun to see those connections come in full circle. We saw what Ryan Blaney was able to do in his championship run. We'll see what Brad May could do to cap off his season as well as we hit the choose this time.
I love that program from Advanced Auto Parts so much, and I look forward to seeing the announcement of who would be on the C-post of Ryan Blaney's car each and every week. A lot of times it's a lot of the drivers that we've encountered in all of our NASCAR Roots racing and the things that we've covered. I know Connor Hall, the newly crowned national champion of the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, got his name on Blaney's car, as did Brad May, as his last year's champion Lane Ring. So many different people that make NASCAR Roots go and make the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series go, as all of a sudden Gio Ruggiero has pulled down and stopped in the bottom of turns 3 and 4. The yellow flag will come immediately back out. Problems for Gio Ruggiero here near the halfway point of the 58th Governor's Cup.
And we were just about to size up the fact this was going to be the first time that Byron had Ruggiero on his inside for the restart. And he immediately has come down the pit lane, and they're going right to the left rear tire, which they had worked on under the last caution. Trying to see what may be a miss on that number 22 car. Initial thought would be maybe a loose wheel on that car, but they're checking pretty much the entire rear end of that vehicle.
That was my first thought, too. Maybe a loose lug nut on that number 22 that might have forced him to come down back pit road, because he was getting ready to get back up to speed and immediately came off the pace before they even hit the restart zone. So he knew something was wrong before they even thought about trying to race for the green flag.
So one of the bullets in the chamber for Donnie Wilson Motorsports, who was one of the odds-on favorites to win this race. Now he finds himself in some sort of trouble, and judging by the attitude of that crew, this may be pretty significant and much more than just a loose wheel.
Biggest thing, he'll have to find a way to get back out on the racetrack here before they go back to green flag racing, or he will start to fall laps down and truly fall out of contention entirely for this Governor's Cup. So only about a lap here as the lights are off the pace car. If Ruggiero is going to stay in the hunt, this is the moment where we're going to see him get back out there. He's got to make something happen soon on pit road.
And uniquely, we kept the field double file, and it looks as though the inside line is going to be able to move back up. Now the caution lights come back on.
A big sigh of relief there. Gives them a little bit more time in the 22 pit to try and diagnose what's going on the race car. They've taken the right rear tire off as well, so the entire rear end of this race car up off the ground as they trying to figure out what on earth has happened to Gio Ruggiero's car and what caused him to slow down so dramatically right before we hit the start finish line. As we get the one to go yet again, this time we should get a restart here at New Smyrna.
Curious if it's going to be a broken axle on that car, judging by the way in which they're having to go to work there. And I do believe the pit stalls here are a different texture and surface than what's on the racetrack. Maybe when they dropped the jack and got the car back out there, something happened, and thank goodness Gio noticed it before the green flag flew. But they're a half a lap away from missing this restart, and the whole inside line is going to move up. That's going to put Atwell back on the inside of row 1, where he started. That's going to put Nasse up to the inside of row 2. Johnny Aramendia inside of row 3. Let's try it again. William Byron leads us down for the restart.
Byron and Atwell Absolute dead even restart almost. So Atwell will have a car. Oh, look at Byron slide up the racetrack. And Jesse Dutilli shot through the middle to take that top spot. And the first spot on the outside lane to the outside of Atwell. He goes. Jesse Dutilli to the point on lap 91.
Byron overcooked the corner, and now he's back to third, maybe fourth, as Atwell tries to fight back on the inside of Dutilli, who goes to the front. Now he runs wide in 1 and 2. Atwell back to the power, trying to get inside, but Dutilli's got the lead.
Oh, by the way, Stephen Nasse is now up into the fourth position, working to the inside. William Byron just behind the race leader. So Dutilli up to first, Atwell to second. Byron and Nasse fighting for the third and fourth spots.
While we watch the battle up front continue, word from the pit area and Jacqueline Drake. It is, in fact, a broken axle on Giovanni Ruggiero's car, probably when he exited the pit lane. What a heartbreaker.
A tough break for Gio Ruggiero, who had one of the fastest cars. That's one of the 4 biggest names in this field out of contention just before the halfway point, as it's 2 local drivers here. It is Jesse Dutilli representing Bradenton, Florida, and Michael Atwell out of Naples pacing the field in the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna.
Not to take anything away from the front runners, but when we talked about the lead up to this race, there were 4 names that were jump off the page obvious when looking at the entry list. William Byron, Stephen Nasse, Jesse Love, Giovanni Ruggiero. Now look at the 2 who are leading this race and have been fast all day long. Dutilli, Atwell looking low off the corner. Byron's fallen about a car length behind the duo as that battle for the lead will go back to turn 1.
Byron's fallen back just a bit. Nasse's been able to close on Byron just a touch. He's cleared Anthony who now holds the 5th position in this race. Jesse Love there, now the remaining car out there for Donnie Wilson running in the 6th position. But Dutilli and Atwell continue to pace this field. And Dutilli, again, he was the one driver that our track champion Brad May looked at. May currently running in the 7th position, but he said Dutilli, he doesn't run here all that much, but when he does, watch out. That driver has plenty of pace, plenty of speed. We are seeing it in full display here as we approach the halfway point of the Governor's Cup.
And even though we're not halfway, Pike, I will say that move by the 30 to not pedal it when Byron was sliding up the hill, and rather to throttle down to be able to shoot the middle and get through that gap to get to the race lead, that's certainly going to be one of the best moves that we may see this afternoon, but we still got a long way to go in this race.
And that was about the 3rd time, I think, by my count, this race that Dutilli has done something like that, where he's seen an opportunity right after the restart, entering turn 2, either goes in the middle or takes somebody 3 wide and has no problem making a move. As Jesse Dutilli will lead us at the halfway point, cross flags from the flag stand, 100 down, 100 to go in the 58th Governor's Cup from New Smyrna Speedway.
If the teams are trying to treat this race as far as splitting it in half, we've now entered the second and final chapter of what is the story to be told of the 2023 running of the Florida Governor's Cup. And Jesse Dutilli has been doing a masterful job out in front as he continues to lead Michael Atwell, who runs second. Now William Byron starting to float back up towards the back bumper of the 55 in what is shaping up to be a battle for second. There's Stephen Nasse not far behind, got a car on the wall, turn 2.
Caution flag will come out again right after the halfway point as one car has stuffed it way up in the fence. It's the 80 machine of Brian Finney that has hit the wall. He was running in the 14th position, but now is stuck up along the fence, and you can see the damage to the left rear corner of that car, which is stuck up against the wall. That'll be our 7th yellow of the afternoon with 99 laps to go.
Very ironic and very similar to what we saw with the most recent caution, our 6th yellow, the 1 yellow prior, when we saw Trent Hennick get up and into the wall. Ironically, another local driver to this racetrack. This one, unfortunately for that of Finney, who we touched on a little bit earlier, he's been able to stay on the lead lap throughout this race and has pretty much been hanging around the top 15 throughout most of the contest. But right at the halfway point, the driver out of Merritt Island, Florida, who, as we said, was 3rd in the championship standings coming into this race. This is a points-paying venture, so we may have to check the numbers there to see if 3rd in points is going to be safe for that of Brian Finney. But nevertheless, a strong season for him, committing to this racetrack. He was looking for what he would hope to be, perhaps maybe his first win of the season. He was looking for his 2nd top 5, 4th top 10 on what was a consistent year, but it seems as though that his afternoon is going to end just past the halfway point in this race.
Taking a look at the point standings, would you like to know who is 4th in the current standings entering today's Governor's Cup? Eric Brennan. You want to take a guess?
I'm curious.
You're curious? Well, it could get very interesting because the driver in fourth, Naples, Florida's Michael Atwell. So there could be a change for points positions here as the 55 machine comes down pit road for service. Convenient that we talk about Atwell. Now he comes in to get his car fixed up.
I was going to say right on cue. Now, Atwell did stop on the last yellow, so they're electing to utilize this caution, a consecutive caution, as a chance to come down and run additional service on that car.
Looks like a left front tire is going on and now a left rear tire is going on. So looks like 2 of the 4 of Atwell's allocation going on that machine. And this could change. The point situation will be interesting because Atwell came into this afternoon 26 points back of Brian Finney. And basic math here, every position at New Smyrna for the local points is essentially worth 2 points. So you can sort of ballpark it. It's about a 13-spot difference. And also worth noting that Daniel Webster came into this afternoon only 5 points back of Atwell. So Webster's been consistently hanging around in the top 10. Atwell's going to have work to do to get back up. But 3rd, 4th, 5th in the local point standings here in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, very much up for grabs among some of the local super late model drivers.
Atwell is not the only car that has come down for service. Ryan Herbert, the 22 out of Gainesville, Georgia, also receiving service, as is the number 78 of John Kaufman out of Live Oak, Florida, who is stopping under this, the 7th yellow flag of this race, just past the halfway point. And unfortunately for Giovanni Ruggiero fans, we mentioned it was a broken axle on that 22 car. They just slowly pushed that car back behind the pit wall. His race is over.
A heartbreaker, and not the way that you want to try and build momentum heading into the Snowball Derby as well. We know that he's going to have a very, very big shot at that race coming up in a few weeks in Pensacola at Five Flag Speedway too. But you want to try and carry good momentum into this, and so going to be a little bit of a setback in their efforts to try and go after that too.
So, Pike, as we get set to see this race restart, now that the scene in turns 1 and 2 has been cleared, they did push the 80 car back behind the wall, so they've been able to retrieve that vehicle from up against the fence. I'm curious as to what the agenda is going to be for your race leader in Jesse Dutilli. Now, let's remember back to when Byron was in control of this race. He would pick the outside for the restarts. As you see the stricken car of Ruggiero there stuck behind the pit wall. But Byron has preferred the outside lane when he's had the choice. So does Dutilli now have to act on the defensive and take that away from him? Or is he going to open up the bottom of the racetrack for Byron's taking when they come to the choose here and probably a couple more caution laps from now?
I think the fun part about this restart is that for as much as Jesse Dutilli has loved to go 3 wide in turn 2 right off the back of these restarts, he's going to be the one in control of this now, and he won't have the opportunity to send anybody 3 wide unless he runs it up the racetrack. So is his sort of reference going to be a little bit off? Is he going to have to figure that out and see how he carries on? And we'll see. I mean, lots of questions here, but do you lose that ability to charge the corner because you are your own reference point because you don't have anybody in front of you? That I'll be very curious to see whether or not he accidentally just runs it too deep because he's so used to using the cars ahead of him as reference points on that first braking zone out of turn 1.
Appears as though we are not going to get to choose this time through. We mentioned that the 22 of Herbert was down in the pit lane. He needed a push from one of the all-terrain vehicles to get back underway. As they come to the line, in fact, they are going to hit the choose this time. So it is going to be Dutilli electing the outside, Byron on the bottom. Then it's Stephen Nasse, who was 3rd at the time of the caution. He's picked the top behind Dutilli. Jesse Love on the bottom of row 2.
Also, a little silver lining for Trent Hennick, who went around a little bit earlier. Race is over, but he is going to pick up the Track Rookie of the Year honors in 2023 in the Super Late Models. So not a completely terrible day for Hennick as Byron and Dutilli lead us back to the green flag just past the halfway point in the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna. Off they go, and Dutilli got a great run on that high line and continues to motor on, motor away. Great run of momentum on the top side, and Dutilli, and then he slides it and got a little bit loose out of the corner, and that brought William Byron right back alongside him.
Oh, they almost come together at the end of the backstretch. Dutilli on the outside, Byron on the bottom, Nasse in the mix as well as they come back to the line, and Dutilli will cement the lead.
Dutilli clear. Byron still in second. Now Stephen Nasse trying to get third, and Byron will be able to clear Nasse and lock down the second spot. Eyes now turn a little bit further back to the battle between Jesse Love and Anthony Sergi for the fourth position. Those two still trying to figure out who wants fourth down the front stretch as they bounce off of each other out of turn 4.
A pair of 20 cars, rubbing doors. Inside in the orange and black cars, that of Jesse Love, your Arkham and Orange champion. Outside in the blue and black number 20 is that of Anthony Sergi, who surges forward and has a half car length advantage in 3.
Sergi surges forward. $1 in the jar for Eric Brennan as Sergi will take the spot and take control of fourth. So now that's pretty much everybody in the top 10 single file. The first battle, Michael Atwell trying to make his charge back to the front. He's alongside Jonathan Nee. That's for the 9th position, and he will get the spot. So now it's the top 9 all single file here at New Smyrna.
Behind them, Johnny Aramendia trying to get by Neen, unable to make the pass. As you see now, here is a couple of cars battling for position here on the back of what is pretty much a Congo line all the way through pretty much the top 8, top 9 with Atwell trying to join the party. As it is Brad May who runs in 7th, Bobby Good just behind in the 27 in 8th position.
Drivers, I think, now really starting to save stuff where you can. This is an opportunity for you to make sure that you've got something for the end, unless you're Stephen Nasse, who continues to pressure William Byron and has closed up that gap just a little bit since we went green flag racing. He got clear of Sergi. Now that he's single file, beginning to try and click off laps. And Nasse was right there. He was only 3/1,000ths off of Byron's pace last time by. So the front cars all really digging.
And this is one of the first opportunities we'll get to pretty much measure out Nasse ahead of, or I should say head-to-head to, the number 24 of William Byron. We've seen Nasse in and around Jesse Love. We've seen Nasse in and around Giovanni Ruggiero when he was still on the racetrack. We haven't really seen him around William Byron all that much this afternoon by virtue of him having to fall to the back, come back forward, fall to the back, come back forward. This is the first time he's been in and around Byron in terms of running in close proximity for position. We'll finally get to see how that 51 fares compared to the early race leader in that of Byron, and eventually the 30 of our current leader in Dutilli.
Michael Atwell a little bit further back, continuing to make moves around Bobby Good for the 8th position now. He's the one car that is on the charge as the leaders continue to work their way around the half mile here at New Smyrna. And Nasse, I think, in this race in particular, it's all about the management of emotions. He is a very charismatic and emotional guy. He loves to race. He loves to win. He cares a lot about going to victory lane, very much like Kyle Busch, I think, in that respect. And it has not been an easy road for him to get back up to the front of this field twice. You know that there was some frustration bubbling behind the driver's seat there, but if you're Nasse, I think you have to find a way to control all that, channel that, and find a way to let that propel you to the front, because you could be mad about the fact that you've had all these things thrown your way, or you could say, you know what, we're going to take the lemons that life has given us and try and make lemonade out of it. And so far, he's put himself in a very good position, losing a little bit of ground to Byron and Dutilli, but there is time. We're going to have at least one more pit stop for these drivers to come down and make adjustments on their race cars. So you've got opportunities to make it work if you are the Pinellas Park, Florida native.
We touched on it several times in terms of the historical significance of this race, specifically for drivers who are from this part of the motorsports world. Let's talk about the race leader, who is starting to see his advantage fall a little bit back towards William Byron, who's closing in. Jesse Dutilli did not run this race in 2021. His last race, or his last run in the Governor's Cup was in 2020, and he finished 4th. This is his 5th Governor's Cup start, and as we mentioned, we are guaranteed to have a new winner in this race, and Dutilli is trying to not only add his name to that long and impressive list of former winners, but also to best this stacked field, where so far he has been able to have luck on his side. He has been able to perform, and right now he is fending off NASCAR Cup Series driver William Byron for the race lead, but Byron is starting to close.
Byron has started to reel Dutilli in. He was faster by 4/100ths of a second on the stopwatch last time by, and the 24 seems like it does a really nice job of holding middle to long run pace. Maybe not immediately quick right off the jump, but once that car gets going and the tires warm up at about 5 to 10 laps, Byron's been as consistent as anyone in this field, and we're starting to see that come to the fore. Last time by, they were right on top of each other in the stopwatch, but that gap is maybe a car length and a half at best coming through turn 3.
The Anthony Campy organization with William Byron trying to get Byron another super late model win at New Smyrna. And next up is going to be that 30 car of Dutilli. Still a long way to go in this race. 82 laps to go. The last time they came by the start-finish line, and the gap was 0.3 of a second. As Byron now sets up high in turn 3, tries to get a late apex off the corner, and these two are starting to build a bit of a gap on that of Stephen Nasse. He's a second in arrears.
Building a gap and maybe building a notebook too. Was that William Byron potentially searching through lines and seeing whether or not going high or going low might work a little bit better for that Anthony Campy racing machine? Who knows, but it's certainly worth noting. He definitely took a different line in 3 and 4, entered high, exited low. Didn't draw him all that much closer to Jesse Dutilli, but again, I think these drivers are trying to figure out things for the end of this race. What it really matters, trying to piece together where you can run, what places you can go to, where on the racetrack you need to be in order to gain track position, especially if you're the only one in a particular line on the racetrack.
Lap ago, we saw Byron dip that left front tire down below the yellow line on the exit of turn number 4. That may work at some of the racetracks in which you will see cars like this or pro late models or late model stocks run. But here at New Smyrna Speedway, with that 23-degree of banking transition down to the flat, it could really upset the race car. And Byron had his hands full coming off the corner. He's trying to find that razor's edge of perfection to get all the way down to the bottom of the banked pavement he has to work with to close up in this battle for the lead. And look at him set up high again there in turn 3. Try that late apex. He doesn't catch the apron that time. It was the tail end of the car that got loose coming off the corner.
They traded tenths over the last 2 laps. Last time by, Byron was the faster by a tenth. This past time by, it was Dutilli that was faster. So that gap went down to about a half car length. Now it's about 2.5. All the while, Stephen Nasse's maintained a similar sort of gap. Hasn't let these drivers go, but he's certainly not giving up any ground to Jesse Love, and he's not letting them get too far out in front of his windshield either. So it just feels like a gigantic game of poker that we're watching, where nobody really wants to let everybody know what kind of hand they've got, but they also don't necessarily want to do anything either. It just feels like rounds of checking and calling bets here.
75 laps to go, and Jesse Dutilli is having himself quite the day. Now starting to open up that advantage over William Byron as Stephen Nasse starts to join the fray. There is a little bit of traffic further ahead. The first car they're going to encounter is going to be the number 78 of John Kaufman, who is 3 laps down currently. And then they've got a bit of a gap to get up to Ross Francisco, who was the last car on the lead lap in 15th spot. So the leaders trying to keep themselves in clear racing room for as long as possible as Nasse starts to close to make it a 3-car race at the head of the field.
You know, if you're Dutilli, you'd absolutely love to get your hands on the Governor's Cup. You talked a little bit earlier about his triumphs in the Bill Bigley Senior Memorial 128. He's got 2 victories there, but this is a different level altogether. This is a race that a lot of people would put in the same breath as a Snowball Derby. It would be a massive accomplishment for Dutilli if he can pull it off, but we still have almost 70 laps to go, and there's lap traffic that the field is working around now. The 78 machine of John Kaufman to the inside as Dutilli and Byron put him another lap down.
We're starting to see a little bit of an accordion effect up towards the front of the field, because not only has Nasse been able to close up from 3rd, but Jesse Love is starting to close in on this fight at the front of the pack. We touched on this briefly, but many may be aware the news that came down that Jesse Love will be moving over to Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2024, leaving the Toyota camp, which helped push him up to the success in which he has found that includes an ARCA Menard Series title and 10 wins on the season. However, However, he is committed, along with his teams and development group, to finish out his obligations with the Toyota stable, and he wants to do so on the highest of highs. He is running very well, and now that his teammate and Gio Ruggiero is out of this race, all focus in the Donnie Wilson camp shifts to this 20 car, and Love is finding pace as this race starts to work its way towards the pay window opening.
I get the sense that Love sort of let everybody ahead of him really race, knowing that as we clicked off laps here, if he kept himself in good position, he'd find his way towards the front of the field. And we're starting to see that now. The leaders are beginning to bunch up ever so slightly. But for Jesse Love in particular, this is a race where, in theory, you don't necessarily have to be all that motivated. You know you're going to run the Xfinity Series for Richard Childress next year. You know, Austin Hill talked at length about how excited he was to have Jesse Love as a teammate in the final few races of the season. He knew this was coming. So if you're Love, you know, you're not going to have that many races left with Donnie Wilson, with the Toyota Racing Development Group, but as a racer, you want to go out and you want to try and win everything. And that, I think, more than anything else, is what's driving the Menlo Park, California native. Only Californian in this field. But what an impressive run he's had through the ARCA Menards Series West to the ARCA Menards Series at the national level. The Xfinity Series, and he spins over in turn 1 and 2. And the yellow flag will come out once again. He just lost it there over on the entry. I think he got loose there, but he goes around. Yellow flag comes out.
Yeah, but another car went into the wall just behind him. That was John Kaufman, who just went a 4th lap down. Makes me wonder if there may have been something on the racetrack, unless Kaufman may have gotten on the blinders a little bit too hard and pretty much mirrored the impact that Love had up towards the outside wall.
Love, I don't think, got the wall, but Kaufman, as you can see on your screens, clearly was not so fortunate.
Just as we were outlining all of the angles of the Jesse Love story in this race, he spins out of a top 5 spot, about 17 laps shy of the 3/4 distance mark of this race. Here's how it happened.
Love, to his credit, recognized that he was going around and kept in the throttle to keep that car out of the wall. Did a really nice job of keeping the Donnie Wilson machine away from the fence. So he gets it stopped up there and righted. He'll lose the track position, but you at least still have a car to work with. And there are other drivers in this field who have spun out over there who cannot consider themselves as lucky and are already out of the race.
And you're right, Pike. That's a great point. As that car started to yaw out, we saw him burp the back tires or light up the back tires in order to stop the backwards momentum that car had. And that's what reduced the chances of that car sustaining major damage. We've seen other drivers in similar circumstances kind of panic and just go right to the binders and try to stop, and that doesn't really scrub off enough speed to keep you out of the outside retaining wall. So hats off to Jesse Love and his ability to realize, if I'm going to minimize the damage of this mistake or this situation, I got to throttle down, and it kept that car from sustaining any major cosmetic damage. But it does take another favorite in this race and put them behind the 8 ball. We'll take one more look at it here, going off into turn number 1. And you see Love entering a little bit higher than the preferred groove, it seems, but that car snapped in a big way at the end of the straightaway.
That he got on the gas pedal to keep the car out of the wall. That's an experienced driver move, and that's a testament to just how much racing he's done at 18 years old. You want to feel old? Jesse Love was born in 2005. I have plenty of memories from living in that year, and by no means are we exactly the old foxes here, but a testament to how well he's been put through the ringer in the TRD camp and how highly Richard Childress thought of him to bring him straight to the Xfinity Series for 2024. He's been a prospect that I've been keeping an eye on for the better part of the last decade, and excited to see not only what he can do to try and get back up to the front, but what he'll be able to accomplish in the Xfinity Series next year.
That stat about him being born in 2005 was not the shot in the arm that I needed here to feel any younger, I'll tell you that. As you can see, the pit lane is very busy as the teams are going to take this chance to bring down just about everybody. In fact, the only car, as you see William Byron's Anthony Campy Racing Group going to work on his, at the time, second-place running car. But Pike, the only car that has stayed out on the racetrack is that of pole sitter Michael Atwell, who stopped on the caution prior. This seems to be the big strategy move for that 55 car. We'll see how it pans out for him as the teams continue to go to work. We are under yet another caution here at New Smyrna Speedway. Michael Atwell will be the leader when we get back underway. 67 laps to go from New Smyrna Speedway. We'll be back right after this. Wrapping up our 8th caution of the race as drivers are vying for that the Governor's Cup trophy that is up for grabs and waiting on standby because we are not yet certain who is going to be able to take it back on home with them to round out the racing season here at New Smyrna Speedway. We are watching it all unfold here on Flow Racing. I'm Eric Brennan alongside of James Pike. Jacqueline Drake has been gathering all sorts of notes and information for us. We've been hearing for her throughout the day as well, as it has been an action-packed 2023 running of the Florida Governor's Cup at this racetrack after a one-year hiatus, and there are storylines aplenty. And Pike, we've seen several favorites kind of fall by the wayside, some more than once, as this race has gone on. There's a couple of really talented drivers at the head of the pack right now, but they may not be the ones that the handicappers would have picked to be contenders to win up against the entry list that we highlighted so far throughout this race.
This race turned on its head in about 20 laps completely for all of Donnie Wilson Motorsports. Gio Ruggiero broke a rear axle out of the race after running in the top 3, top 4, top 5 pretty much the whole way. Jesse Love still on pit road, making sure that he didn't flat spot the tires when he spun out in turn 1 and brought out the most recent yellows. So those two were some big names that a lot of people were watching who have encountered all sorts of trouble. But you've got some fast names that are still in the mix too. William Byron and Stephen Nasse, both piloting machines for Anthony Campy Racing, who's one of the top teams in straight rail car competition across the United States. All there in the top 5, in 3rd, in 4th at the moment, as we've got one car stopped on the front straightaway. Jonathan Nee in the 8 machine going to get a push from the tow truck to get going again, so caution will continue to fly here on the speedway. And then some of the local drivers, Michael Atwell here, who has zigged where they have zagged and came down pit road and decided to stay out under this yellow when everybody else behind him came down. So a bit of an alternate pit strategy, which I've seen work for some drivers and races. I think back to the Old North State Nationals in 2020 at Greenville Pickens Speedway when Josh Berry essentially went on an alternate pit strategy for Junior Motorsports and was able to pick up the victory there. Get that same kind of feeling from Michael Atwell, where you're thinking if we shuffle our strategy and we do something a little bit different compared to everybody else, it might give us the track position that we need. He had been running towards the back end of the top 10 before this yellow flag. Everybody else comes bound down pit road, and the pole sitter is back up where he's like to be all race long in the lead.
We're going to be coming to the choose and one to go this time by, and it should be noted that William Byron, who I would say is one of the proverbial favorites, still kind of in contention up there towards the front, along with Stephen Nasse, not necessarily happy with that race car. There was a track bar adjustment that was made on that machine per Jacqueline Drake down pit side. Byron has been superb on the outside lane. No surprise, he elects to follow the pace setter Michael Atwell. It'll be Atwell in the 55 choosing the top of row 1. Then it's Dutilli on the bottom in the 30, who's also been really good on the inside of the racetrack. This is going to be a shootout of a restart. Nasse in the 51, Byron in the 24, and newcomer to the top 5, the number 33 of Daniel Webster, cracking the top 5 for the first time in this race.
Back to green flag racing we go. They almost bounce off of each other down the front stretch. Dutilli and Atwell as they come back up to full song at New Smyrna. Dutilli with a good run down on the inside. Atwell will give way and get a little bit loose. Byron had to check up too to make sure that he didn't run Atwell over. And that allows Stephen Nasse to get in there. And he makes contact with Atwell. Atwell goes up the racetrack. Nasse to second. Byron to third. Webster now fights Atwell for fourth.
How about William Byron saying, I'm going to thread the needle here. I had this done to me earlier in the race to lose the lead. That's how I'm going to be able to hold on to a podium spot right now, as Atwell is struggling there in the 55. He's fallen back to 5th, may lose another spot here to Anthony Sergi as they go into 3, but it is Jesse Dutilli, the leader, Stephen Nasse to second.
Pinellas Park, Florida, all on its feet, seeing their driver and one of the best in super late model racing as Atwell slows down on the back straightaway. Michael Atwell is slow. The pole sitter now down on the apron in turns 3 and 4, and coming to pit road is Atwell for service. This could be the end of his opportunity to try and win the 58th Governor's Cup.
We saw Atwell and team play a different strategy. They stopped the caution prior. They stayed out on the most recent yellow to cycle up to the front of the field. And he is now on the pit lane under green. What a heartbreaker. And he is going right to the truck and is out of this race and done for the pole sitter.
Can't tell, that left rear may be down. I wonder if there's some rear suspension damage that may have done it, but just a killer break. Naples, Florida's Michael Atwell, one of the best cars in this field, out of the Governor's Cup on lap 137 of 200, and that will now give Jesse Dutilli the sort of local legend status amongst the top four. But you mentioned Daniel Webster. We talked about him earlier and what he might be able to do. The Brooksville, Florida native who's run so many races here, so many races in super late model competition across the East Coast. One of those drivers who might not necessarily press the issue early on, but will just try and keep himself in a good position to make something happen and be there at the end as Stephen Nasse continues to press Jesse Dutilly for the race lead. But watch Daniel Webster. Now that he's there, I like the experience that he has. He could be one we need to watch as Nasse continues to hound Atwell for first.
The big thing that Stephen Nasse has right now is a gap back to William Byron as Dutilly runs right in the middle of the road in turns 1 and 2 to try to protect the race lead. Nasse has worked his way from the back of the field twice so far this afternoon, but he has yet to lead this race, maybe until now as he looks to the bottom in turn 1.
Not wasting any time. He gets Jesse Dutilly up the racetrack a little bit. Stephen Nasse there to the bottom, and the fans at New Smyrna clapping, cheering, pumping fists, getting on their feet as their local driver takes the race lead. Everybody here in the crowd up in the stands as Stephen Nasse goes to the bottom, and Stephen Nasse will try and finish this off in turn 2. He does. New leader, the number 51 for Anthony Campi Racing. It's Stephen Nasse.
He was 9,000ths of a second short of having to lead a lap ago. Dutilly tried to fight back to the bottom to cross over, but to the crowd's approval, Stephen Nasse leads this race for the first time with 57 laps to go.
So now if you're Stephen Nasse, you finally got out front. What do you do? How do you manage this race? How do you manage your car? You finally have the track position, but are you going to try and stretch it and really make a point emphatically that you're that much better than everybody else? Or are you just going to manage this and keep enough distance to Jesse Dutilly that, you might be a little bit ahead of him, but not so far ahead of him that you burn your stuff up? Maybe make it more of a psychological, mental thing. I'm very curious to see how Nasse plays this out at this stage as we approach the three-quarter mark of the 58th Governor's Cup.
The way in which Stephen Nasse's 2023 has kind of ebbed and flowed, you almost expect success out of this driver with all that he's been able to accomplish in his stock car racing career. But he's had a couple of them get away. He's had a couple of victories already under his belt. But this is a place that he considers to be that of home. This is a race that he has tried to win 12 times prior. This is his 13th effort at the Florida Governor's Cup. Is 2023 going to be the year that the stars finally align for that of Stephen Nasse? He's about to have some company, though, up towards the front as William Byron is to the inside of Dutilly for second. They almost make contact in 1 and 2. Byron throttles up off 2 to try to get alongside in 3.
The last 5 laps or so, I've noticed that the rear end on Dutilly's car slid out on corner exit, both in turn 2 and turn 4, more than I've seen just about the whole of this race. The handling does not look to be the greatest on Dutilly's car as Byron works the bottom. He's able to roll momentum high, but then he gets loose a little bit on corner exit, and that allows Byron to close right back up on Dutilly's rear bumper. So I think Dutilly's fighting his race car a little bit. He will love to see the opportunity to get back down pit road soon.
Byron right now is hoping for an opportunity to get past this 30 car to stop Stephen Nasse from being able to extend the race lead. It was about 9/10 of a second last time through. Now Byron up to the numbers of Dutilly. Now up to the door. Now wheel to wheel off of turn 4. Dutilly way sideways off the corner. Catches the car but loses second spot to Byron.
William Byron now up there. It's an Anthony Campi Racing 1-2 as it stands between Byron and Stephen Nasse. Those machines have been absolutely rolling. Meanwhile, just a little bit further back, don't look now, but Daniel Webster and Anthony Sergi may be getting into a battle. The Jet Motorsports machine of Sergi trying to work on Daniel Webster's car for that spot in turn 1 and 2.
Webster's going to commit to that little bit of a higher lane there in turns 1 and 2 to try to protect that spot. As right now, Nasse's been able to hold down the lead. Here's Webster in the 33, Anthony Sergi in the 20. It's the battle for 4th and 5th, respectively. As Webster, who's 5th in points here at New Smyrna Speedway, the 2 top 5s, I should say, 3 top 10s on the season was that of Webster. And this is his second Governor's Cup start. His first one since 2011. Was caught up in an accident there. It looks as though he's going to improve on that result here. Should he be able to see his way to the finish is that of Webster, who's currently running in 4th position.
Webster there trying to keep Anthony Sergi at bay, but Sergi's car really has come on nicely in the second half of this race. We've seen more speed out of that machine, I think, than we've seen at any point up to this stage, and we're starting to see the major players set themselves up, maybe not make their final attack as we approach lap 200, but beginning to try and put themselves into position to where they're right where they want to be to set up that final stretch run and the final maybe 25 laps or so.
So far, Nasse's been able to exercise this 1 second advantage over William Byron. Last time through, Byron was a tick faster. There are a couple of lap cars on the same straightaway as your leader. May not encounter them for a handful of laps from now, but that may be the opportunity in which Byron is looking for to close up on Nasse ever since he got out in front of this field. And we got a car off the pace, turn 4. Jesse Love dives to the pit area, and ever since that spin in turn 1, the other Donnie Wilson Motorsports car has just not been right, and he washed up the racetrack in turn 4, came to the attention of his crew, and it is going to be an O for the Donnie Wilson team. Love also behind the wall and out of this race.
Window nut down on Love's machine. So Donnie Wilson Motorsports collectively done for the day. 40 laps and change shy of the finish here in the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna Speedway. Stephen Nasse has stretched it out on William Byron to just about 0.8 of a second. He's in control of this, and Jesse Dutilli has stayed there. He hasn't necessarily fallen back. If anything, it's Webster that's been backing up Sergi. That's the gap that's really grown at this stage. It's about 2 seconds from Dutilli in third to Webster in fourth, and then Sergi immediately behind him.
All the while, Stephen Nasse working his way around Ross Francisco to put him 1 lap off the leaders. In fact, Francisco is several laps down. He's going to go another down here to the front runners. And next in line is going to be what looks to be that of perhaps the 75 car of Brighton Homer, who's had a quiet afternoon so far. Nasse's going to try to pick the top lane there on that car at the exit of turn number 2. And even with this traffic, so far Nasse's been able to kind of mind, or even, I wouldn't say extend the gap, he's been able to maintain that advantage of about 1 second back to Byron.
You think about a driver his age, 28 years old, but again, having run so much in the super late model too. I think that's also worth pointing out that he's run late models, he's run pros, he's run all kinds of late model stock cars, but the super is the one that would be a proverbial home, as it were. This is the particular kind of late model he knows best, and the one that they run so much here at New Smyrna Speedway. So you've got all kinds of experience, and you know, if you're Stephen Nasse, you can run this pretty much however you want to. It very much is a choice at this point to try and stretch this out or just be in front enough of William Byron to have the lead, but not necessarily put yourself into trouble. And, you know, you come to the start finish line, you go back to that old racing adage, you only have to beat the next car by a car length or even a bumper if you want. If you finish first, you still finish first. Doesn't matter whether or not you're 0.2 of a second or 2 seconds proper ahead of second place.
Because of the level of attrition that this race has had, the leaders are still going to be encountering a couple of cars here and there in terms of lap traffic, but I don't think we're going to see the packs of lap vehicles that we saw earlier in this race. So it's going to provide an opportunity to see a little bit of an ebb and flow, and I'll call it a mano match in terms of lap times and intervals between the front 3, and that's pretty much what we've been seeing. The last few laps, William Byron has been a little bit quicker than that of Stephen Nasse. All the while, things are still being physical in the fights throughout the top 10 positions.
Lots of fun here as Daniel Webster and Anthony Sergi got into it just a few moments ago. Great work by the camera team here at New Smyrna Speedway on Flow Racing as Webster got moved out of the way. Sergi now up into the 4th position.
Sergi continues his climb up the scoring pylon. He has a large gap by the length of the full back straightaway to try to catch up to the next car in Dutilli. But the battle for the lead is starting to heat up once more. Another 0.2 of a second. Byron has been able to chop off of Stephen Nasse's advantage. And here comes William Byron, 1 car length off the back bumper of Nasse, the race leader.
William Byron there on Stephen Nasse. Brad May also fighting Daniel Webster further back. When the battles come in New Smyrna, they come in bunches, but we'll keep our eyes on the race lead as Stephen Nasse may have run the good off of his tires. And what has William Byron been able to save in this stretch? He'll duck to the inside of Stephen Nasse, and the Charlotte, North Carolina native now down to the inside of Stephen Nasse for the race lead down the front stretch.
Nasse's able to fend off the challenge for now. Byron's car appears to be able to roll very well, getting back to the gas right here in the center of the corner. Another good drive. He's inside of Nasse, who's trying to protect the top spot. 30 laps to go when they come back around side by side for the lead.
Like we saw so many drivers do in the prelude last night, Byron ran high in the middle of 1 and 2, ducked down to the inside on corner exit, got a run down the back straightaway last lap to be right here in this position alongside Stephen Nasse with the preferred lane down into turn 3. They continue to go door to door as Jesse Dutilli has managed to close up the gap here between these two. Byron slides, Nasse continues to lead as Byron will tuck back in line.
A lot of respect being shown by these front two so far. Nasse has been able to work that outside to perfection, utilizing the launch it gives him out of the exits of turn 2 and turn 4. Now he takes a middle of the road approach while Byron digs deep to try to get back to the bottom at the front stretch on the start finish.
Byron alongside by a fender, now by a door, now almost the whole car as Nasse just rides out the racetrack and gets a good launch on the exit of turn 2 to hold Byron off for the moment. All the while, Dutilli continues to run faster laps than your 2 leaders by about a tenth. It's now a 3-car battle just about for the race lead here at New Smyrna, approaching 25 laps to go.
There are a couple of cars just in front of the race leaders battling for positions in the top 10. It's Connor Sutton in the 54, Johnny Aramendia in the 58. If they continue this fight for position, it's going to be right as the leaders are trying to settle this amongst themselves. 25 to go next time by. Nasse still leads.
Nasse there, Byron waiting, Dutilli trying to hang on. We didn't see the raw pace from Dutilli once these two were able to run by themselves, but now is about the time you have to start playing hands and going for it. 25 laps to go in the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna, and the front 3 all locked together within a second of one another as Byron continues to stalk Stephen Nasse for the lead.
How about the storylines that litter this front 3 right now? You've got Stephen Nasse, who has been known to win some of the biggest super late model races and be very, very fast in every type of stock car he straps into. The Hendrick Motorsports NASCAR Cup Series driver William Byron hounding the backside of the 51 and trying to play the role of the spoiler. I would say was not on the list of the fast 4 cars when this race came underway, and Jesse Dutilli, the Florida native, trying to win in a racetrack that he too calls home. And the top 3 will take that battle for the lead in the turn 1 with lap traffic ahead.
This could get really, really tight. Johnny Aramendia and Connor Sutton have been door to door, and it's right in front of the leaders now. There's nowhere for any one of Nasse or Byron to go as these two go side by side. They almost make contact. I think they did make contact with one another. As Nasse goes to the bottom, Byron will take the top side. There's nowhere for them to go as Byron tried to think about it in the middle, and they split Johnny Aramendia, send him high, and now Nasse will go to the top side around the 54 of Connor Sutton to resume this battle for the race lead, but they had to physically break up the lap traffic to create a lane for themselves.
And a little bit of a fender rub now on Connor Sutton's car as the top 2, now top 3 are going to get by the 54. And that was a hold your breath moment. Nasse lifted way early getting into turn 1 in what was a very patient move and display of racecraft by the top spot holder as Nasse now holds the lead back to the line, 20 to go.
They've got clean track ahead of them for almost a straightaway now. Nothing between Stephen Nasse and William Byron and Jesse Dutilli. This 3-pack for the race lead. They'll have the opportunity to fight this out in the final 20 laps. They may not even catch the lap traffic if we stay green the rest of the way. So this could be very much mano a mano for the Governor's Cup.
Now we see Byron taking that high approach there once again in turns 1 and 2, trying to get a drive down the hill, late apex off the corner, and close up on Nasse, who continues to hold steady on the bottom of the racetrack in 3 and 4. Byron may have allowed the lap traffic to serve as an opportunity to cool his jets for the moment and mount another charge and see what he can do with Nasse for the lead. Byron with a monster drive off turn 2, but not enough to look low.
Can he get to the inside? How much is Steven Nasse saved? How much is William Byron saved? How much is Jesse Dutilli saved? What do they truly have behind the wheels of these super late models, and how much more can they give to try and come home with the Governor's Cup? 183 laps on the board, 17 to go here at New Smyrna, and Steven Nasse still in control of this, but William Byron has been right there for the last 25 laps or so.
And the caution is going to fly. This will be the competition yellow. We went back underway with 67 laps to go, and the rules for this race state that if we run 50 consecutive green flag laps outside of the final 10 laps that remain, we will see a comp yellow. We were 7 laps shy of this not being part of the storyline, but it is going to re-rack the field for a shootout to settle the 2023 Florida Governor's Cup at New Smyrna.
And now we talk about the money stop on pit road. A little bit of a different setup. These drivers will have a few laps to get their adjustments done on pit road, but if you're coming down, this is the time to make the changes that you need to go win the Governor's Cup. It is the most important pit stop opportunity of the afternoon. If you decide to come down pit road at all, we'll see what the leaders end up doing, but it's something we'll have to watch closely for, because if they are going to come, this is the last opportunity realistically that they will have to come in for service.
At the time of the yellow, there were 8 cars on the lead lap. Connor Sutton unofficially should get the free pass to get back on the lead lap. So if you were to elect to stop, you would not fall all the way outside of the top 10, if you will, in terms of lead lap cars. This also has been a bit of a race in terms of attrition so far, and we are down to about half, less than half of the cars that started this race. I think this yellow is going to be a bit of a detriment for that of William Byron, who it seems like the strength of that car comes on full display in a long run. We're not really going to have a long run. Maybe it'll be long enough, but not as long as what we've seen for that 24 car to start to find the top-tier pace that we expected to see from it.
It seems like it's about 5 laps that it takes for Byron's car to really get up to full strength. It is pretty strong on the initial restart, but it's not quite as strong as it is once tires come up to temp, once air pressures are built up. So that's something we'll have to watch. Never mind the fact, look at who's in the 3rd spot. It's Jesse Dutilli. And how many times in this race already have we seen him go 3 wide off of the restarts into 1 and 2 to try and get the top spot? If we had a market for it, place your bets on Dutilli going 3 wide on that initial lap after the restart, because I highly, highly expect we'll see it again. The question is whether or not he'll be successful.
Pit road is open this time. We are not going to see any of the front runners come down. Sutton, who was a lap off the leaders, Johnny Aramendia, have elected to stop, as has number 58 of Michael Goddard, who was running 8th and on the lead lap as well. So only a couple of cars will take advantage of service. 17 laps to go in the Florida Governor's Cup from New Smyrna Speedway. Steven Nasse trying to hold off William Byron for the win. We'll be back with the final 17 laps live on Flow Racing right after this short break. Full credit to all members of the motorsports media who are going to have to do the justice of being able to tell the full story that has been the 2023 running of the Florida Governor's Cup, because from the drop of the green flag up till this point with 17 laps to go, there's been almost too much action to follow and keep track of as we are getting down towards the portion of our program where we will get to see who will be able to hoist the prestigious trophy and take home top honors and add their name to the list of winners as Florida Governor's Cup champions. I'm Eric Brennan alongside of James Pike, Jacqueline Drake down trackside. And Pike, we had several favorites coming into this race, some of them out of competition, some of them had mechanical problems, some hometown heroes who have flourished under the pressure and spotlight of this event, and others who are not as fortunate. And right now we find a couple of familiar names and some underdog stories up towards the front of our field. Steven Nasse and William Byron have been the class of the field, but the box score does not tell the full story of that 51 saga to get there.
Has come through the field twice, had power steering issues before the green flag dropped, had to change out a pump, took a penalty, went to the end of the longest line, went back up to the front, then lost the track position again, had to charge back up to the front again, has led this race for about the last 40 laps or so, but William Byron has been right there throughout the duration. And then don't forget Jesse Dutilli as well, one of the top 5 qualifiers in this race. Anthony Sergi, Daniel Webster, drivers who have all sorts of local experience here at New Smyrna, and Brad May also in the wings too, the newly crowned super late model track champion here, took the championship and clinched it when we took the green flag, also in the mix here late in the going at New Smyrna.
As we hit the choose, Stephen Nasse, the leader, will elect the outside. William Byron's going to go to the bottom. Nasse has had to use that top groove to fend off Byron for the race lead several times before what was our 9th caution with 17 to go. Anthony Sergi picks the bottom of row 2, and then Jesse Dutilli, who's been so quick on the outside of that second row. 17 laps to settle the Governor's Cup. Here we go.
Nasse, Byron rolling back to speed here at New Smyrna. Nasse with that good run up high. What does Jesse Dutilli do? Right on the rear bumper. Sergi got a little bit loose there. Contact there with Dutilli, and that'll allow Nasse and Byron to sneak away just a bit as Byron sends it in deep on Stephen Nasse, who tries to pinch the NASCAR Cup Series star down on the bottom as they come back to the stripe.
Nasse by half a car length, the leader as they got to the line that time through, trying to pin him down. Contact behind them. Dutilli up the racetrack, and the champion, May, spins in turn 2.
Brad May spins around. Caution is back out. Caution number 10 here at New Smyrna. Brad May around on lap 184 in turn 2.
Well, we saw how hard they were racing for the lead. They were racing just as hard in the pack that was pretty much third on back. And unfortunately for Brad May, he was not the first car to make contact in that exchange, but he ended up being the last one to get the nudge in the side that sent him around. And aside from some donuts on the side of that car, not all that much damage to the front end of Brad May's car. He will live to fight out the rest of this race.
That was a classic stack up here between all the leaders up at the front. We'll take a look at what happened here on our Flow Racing replay, and you'll see that there was contact between Sergi and Dutilli, and May tried to go low to avoid it, and Webster was already down there, and they just made contact. There's not really much you can do when you're all fighting for the same real estate. So a racing incident there. Brad May will know that. He's one of the most experienced drivers in the field. He'll hate that he loses the track position, but again, still in the lead lap, so opportunity is there, and never count yourself out or take yourself out of contention if you end up in a situation like this, because you don't know what can happen at the front of the field, especially when the leaders were racing as hard as they were.
Great job by Johnny Aramendia to miss the car of Brad May as he was sliding back down the banking. As May, as you can see, able to rejoin this pack. And how about also Jesse Dutilli? I mean, when you get that high, we are well into this race, 184 of 200 laps complete. That upper groove, it's not really even a groove, it's just pavement, is filled with marbles and dirt and debris from seeing all that has happened. We've had a couple of cars get up and into the wall up there. For Dutilli to get up that high in a four-wheel drift and slide and save the race car, a remarkable effort by the driver who is currently scored in the 4th position.
Big time work, and now Anthony Sergi's got track position as good as he's had, especially in the late stages of this race. He'll have the opportunity to choose third ahead of Jesse Dutilli, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not he goes inside or outside, though you could say the same thing about everybody else in the top 5 trying to sort this out. It looks like we're going to get the one to go from the flag stand this time by as we get set for a restart to come. Just outside of 15 laps to go in the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna.
Last time around, Nasse elected the top side. Second verse going to be same as the first. Nasse up top, Byron on the bottom. Behind Nasse will be that of Anthony Sergi, as well as the 30 car of Jesse Dutilli. And the last time we saw these two in similar proximity, it was reciprocated where they were running. 20 on the bottom, 30 up top. Contact was made. Let's see what happens in row number 2 on this ensuing restart. Daniel Webster now up into the top 5 again in that 33 car. But Nasse has been perfecting the art of the outside on these restarts. Let's see what he can do here with 16 to go.
Michael Goddard also up top there, 2 in 6th as we come back to full song at New Smyrna. Dead even almost down the front straightaway. Byron working the inside of Nasse once again in the corner. They all drive their way to the racetrack. Dutilli, I think, got into Sergi and almost lost it and then saved it once again. But that allows Byron to drop in line behind Stephen Nasse. Those two nose to tail as everybody from third on back continues to fight side by side.
A great launch by Nasse on the outside of the front row for the lead. Dutilli and Sergi, that fight for third won't go away. They almost come together again off the corner. Goddard now cracking the top 5. That car was backwards in turn 3 earlier in this race. What a comeback by he and that team, as it is still Stephen Nasse at the point. Byron second, Sergi to third.
Almost almost approaching the 10 lap to go marker. Goddard and Webster fighting for the 5th position. The front 4 have started to string out. They're getting away from everybody else in this field. So Goddard and Webster need to figure this one out if they want any opportunity to run the rest of the top 4 cars ahead of them down. And Goddard will take the spot over Webster and clear and go back to 5th.
Goddard's going to hold on to that position, but for how long? As Webster tries to get a good drive, things starting to space out a little bit amongst the front 4. Now Goddard cements 5th. Here is the gap, and as we said before the restart, it seems to take William Byron's car a handful of laps to come in. How long will it take? Will the race stay green in order for Byron to be able to flex the muscle of that race car and challenge for the top spot? He has closed it down to a car length as they come off turn 4.
He was a 10th faster the last time by as they come across the stripe to reach 11 laps to go. Byron was 7/1,000ths of a faster, so Nasse responding a little bit. But here comes William Byron with a big charge down the back straightaway and a big send down into turn 3. He'll run up the racetrack just a little bit, try and cut underneath Nasse out of turn 4.
With 10 laps to go in this race, Stephen Nasse certainly knows a lot about having to defend his spot here at New Smyrna, but Byron is in the left rear quarter panel off 2 and looking to the inside for the race lead.
How much will Stephen Nasse pinch William Byron as they exit turn 4? He gets a great run at the outside, so Byron can only tuck back in line. 9 laps to go here at New Smyrna, and it's all Stephen Nasse in control for the moment, but William Byron is right there. Anthony Sergi has not been able to close in, neither has Jesse Dutilli. This is about Byron, and this is about Nasse up to the stripe into 8 laps to go now.
Byron's car has evidently come in. The question is, can he find a way around? Nasse perfecting the yard of being able to fend off the challenge for now. Byron with another great drive off the corner, but Nasse pulls him on corner exit this time through.
It is all about where you make your move. If you're William Byron, there are so many different ways. You can cut inside, you can cut outside, especially over here in turns 1 and 2. Let's take a look at the line that he runs right on the rear bumper of Stephen Nasse. Didn't look to go high, didn't look to go low until he got to the back straightaway, trying to draw even. He'll get the car inside of Nasse once again and slide up the racetrack and maybe, just maybe, force Nasse out of the way for the race lead.
Side by side at the line. Byron the leader by inches that time. 5 to go and they come back around. Byron trying to run Nasse up the hill on corner exit, but Nasse fights back on the outside.
Byron got loose down the back straightaway. That allowed Nasse to pull ahead by a hood length. They bounce off of each other. There's contact there for sure, and all of a sudden, look at Anthony Sergi right here in the mix.
Several members in the crowd have come to their feet here as we are now 5 laps away from settling the Governor's Cup at New Smyrna. Nasse back out in front. Byron trying to pounce Sergi there to make it a 3-car race.
That's about as much breathing room as Stephen Nasse's had in the last 20 laps or so. He'll take that, though, just to keep William Byron at bay, and he's won everything at this racetrack except this race. He's won the heart-to-heart. He's won the Red Eye. He's won the Clyde Hart Memorial. He's now won the Governor's Cup. Byron's off the pace now.
Byron, the second fastest, or maybe one of the fastest cars here, has pulled down low at a 2nd spot.
I wonder if there's a tire rub on that car, but he'll pull to the inside. The battle is over for William Byron. This is now Stephen Nasse versus Anthony Sergi for the 58th Governor's Cup at New Smyrna.
1 by 1, the favorites in this race have fallen by the wayside. Twice it almost happened to Stephen Nasse, the race leader. He is now 2 laps away from the race that has eluded him before. Anthony Sergi trying to close. Nasse with no pressure from behind.
He has tried 12 times to win this race. In his 13th attempt, Stephen Nasse now 1 lap away from finally claiming the Governor's Cup as the fans are on their feet at New Smyrna.
A power steering issue was not going to deny him. An issue with the right front tire was not going to deny him. Who would have thought it would have taken him more than 12 tries to win this race? It's going to happen today. Stephen Nasse is a Florida Governor's Cup winner.
And the entire crowd here at New Smyrna was on their feet. everybody in this place stood up to celebrate their driver, the local man out of Pinellas Park, Florida, who has finally gotten it done in the biggest race of the fall here. As you see his crew at Anthony Campy Racing celebrating, Stephen Nasse is finally a Florida Governor's Cup winner.
To the approval of the hometown crowd, Stephen Nasse, who had his hand out of the window, and he is going to have an opportunity here to a standing ovation from all the fans who have come out here this afternoon to be able to celebrate a chance and an opportunity to get the one that had gotten away from him. His best finish in this race prior was second twice. Second no more. Nasse, the winner.
You see on the name rail, Nasty Nasse, part of the sort of persona he's picked up throughout short track racing. Not afraid to rub fenders, not afraid to move people. He had to run through the field twice in this race, put on a nasty streak on everybody else to get up to the front, and then hold them off to claim this Advance Auto Parts checkered flag moment, which is brought to you by Advance Auto Parts, the proud partner of the NASCAR Advance Auto Parts Weekly Series.
And how much does this mean to Stephen Nasse? He didn't waste any time burning down the house. No victory lap. He wanted that, the Governor's Cup trophy, to be placed on his car for him to take back home. And who would have thought that it would come in this fashion after having to battle back time after time after time? It seemed as though there was a bit of a hit list on all the favorites. It wasn't able to take down this driver, Stephen Nasse. Let's go to victory lane. Jacqueline Drake is going to speak with our winner.
Down here in victory lane with your 58th annual Governor's Cup winner, Stephen Nasse. Out of the car he comes. Wow. Congratulations, as he's going to receive a hug from his mom, and all of his family is here. His sister, his dad. He's going to FaceTime some of his family that can't be here. And the final moments had all the fans on their feet cheering for him as he crossed the start-finish line, taking home the notorious Governor's Cup 58th annual. After 2 years, this race has not been here at New Smyrna Speedway. Stephen, in those final moments, you were racing your teammate, William Byron, extremely hard. Jesse Dutilli was closing in on the gap. Walk me through what was going through your mind.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get me for sure. He definitely had the better car, and we were racing hard. I hate that it ended the way it did for him, but it's just hard racing. He was trying to run me up a little bit, and I was running him back down. I knew if he got by me, I was going to have no chance, so I had to hold him off. But I appreciate him running me clean, and I do have a lot of fun racing with him. I just can't say enough about this Anthony Campy group, and my mom, my dad, and everybody worked so hard. It's been a tough one lately, but I'm got a couple of big ones taken away, and I'll tell you what, this is awesome.
You talk about your season. You've had an up and down season, a lot of emotions. I even saw you tearing up a little bit when your family came up to the window net to congratulate you. Is this a bit of redemption for you?
Yeah, it doesn't really make up for the 400 by any means, but I've been trying to get my name on this trophy for a long time, so it feels good to finally do it.
Congratulations, Stephen Nasse, first-time Governor's Cup winner and your 58th annual Governor's Cup champion.
Thanks, Jack. Pike, I have to tell you, when you look at the collective highlight reel for Stephen Nasse in his career, the dejection for William Byron, who was so close, I got to say, not sure 100% what happens to that 24 car, but boy, I don't know that Stephen Nasse had the fastest car there late in the going. The 24 seemed to be a tick better, but Nasse did everything he had to do to protect the spot. Unfortunate for that of William Byron. He took one of the off weeks to come out here and have some fun in the Super, but Nasse finally gets the one that had continuously got away from him for many years prior, and you can see how much it means to him.
The telltale sign that I heard on that interview with Jacqueline Drake, just that little sniffle, you could tell he was holding back tears. And for someone who's grown up in Central Florida, who knows what the legacy of this race is, the lore, the history, what it means, I have no doubt that he will cherish his name on that trophy, maybe more so than a lot of other drivers, because he's seen it, he's been around it his entire life. He's wanted to win races like this at places like this. crazy to think that he hasn't been able to do it here until today, but it makes this victory all that much special. And all the fans lining the front stretch here, all the people that came down to Victory Lane, all the fans that are lined up along the fence, they all want to see their native son finally celebrate one of the biggest triumphs he has ever had in his short track racing career. And there's a lot of races that he's won that it means that much, I think says a lot to him and about the prestige of the Governor's Cup.
And also on top of that, we mentioned this is a home track for that of Nasse, and Pike, you alluded to it. The crowd engagement here at the racetrack for Nasse, there's not a lot of venues that he goes to where it's not oftentimes a split crowd in terms of those who love him and those who may not. It is evident here that there is a lot of love for that driver and his talent and ability. And I think even though he mentioned when Jacqueline posed the question, is this a bit of redemption for you? It doesn't heal the wound from the Winchester 400 loss, which would have been his third, but I'm sure this helps in a very, very big way. The driver who is certainly on fire late in the going, had a pull-off with a couple laps to go, William Byron, is standing by trackside with Jacqueline.
Standing here trackside with William Byron. You were battling for the lead there in the final laps against your teammate, Stephen Nasse. What happened there with your 24, though, in the closing moments?
Yeah, we just lost oil pressure. I don't think it was related to what we had earlier in the weekend with spark plug issue, but my left gauge went red, and it started sputtering off it too, and luckily we were able to limp it back around to the backstretch and not bring out a caution. But yeah, just weird. I mean, especially battling for the lead there. Like, I thought I'd have one more run back at him. I think we had 4 laps to go, so he was just able to pinch me enough on exit and hurt my drive, and we just were tight all weekend. We couldn't get it to turn, so we needed all the racetrack. So fun battle. Congrats to him. He did a good job, and we'll keep working on it. Definitely new car. We got to work the bugs out, and new motor too. So we'll figure it out.
Coming up next for you, the Snowball Derby. Good luck as you head over that way in the super late model. William Byron retired for the evening after having issues.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And I'll tell you, I hope eventually that information gets back over to Stephen Nasse, because he even said in Victory Lane he may have felt like he played a part in the 24 having a problem and not being able to finish the race, but lost oil pressure. Perhaps for that team, maybe better here than the Derby. Byron said this was kind of going to be a prep for that event, so we'll see him back there for that. Victory Lane ceremonies continue, but we are not done here from the new Smyrna Speedway. We still have several races left on the docket. More post-race coverage from the Governor's Cup and more racing action coming up on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this.